School Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yao Bean of Revolution. We got a land grab in Texas. I feel like the weather has been manipulated. Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button. You in the House of Revolution. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform, y'all. Well, our condolences to all the people who lost their life by this deadly flood. Dozens of young girls are still missing. Let's dig into this. What the hell is going on here?
Videos, strange and odd news stories, and as always, let's go ahead and get right into today's video. I do want to go ahead and apologize if I sound weird or if I sound off in this video. I am having some kind of issue with my throat. I think I'm coming down with some kind of congestion, but I do want to go ahead and talk about these Texas floods. The most recent information that I'm reading from the New York Times, this article is titled, "Desperate Search for Missing in Texas Floods as Death Toll Rises to 69. So this is the most recent information at the time of this recording. 11 girls from a summer camp along the Guadalupe River in the Texas Hill Country are among those unaccounted for. Forecasters warned of more rain and possible flash flooding in hard-hit areas on Sunday. So out of nowhere, on July 4th, these horrific flash floods came out of nowhere, causing so much destruction, chaos, and ending a lot of lives. And now, according to these news reports, there's going to be more flash flood warnings, meaning more possible floods are on the way to this location. But like always, when it comes to this destructive weather that comes out of nowhere and wipes everything out, this historic weather, like they told us this will be our new normal, we always get these news articles that come out, and this train is never late, that blame climate change. Like this news article here from the AP, how weather conditions set the stage for the deadly Texas flash floods. Continue to read the article. It goes on to say, incredible amounts of moisture in the air fueled a storm that moved slowly and dumped rain over central Texas, creating conditions for flash floods in the early morning hours when it was easy to catch people by surprise, meteorologists said. If that's not ominous, I don't know what is. More than 12 inches, 30 centimeters of rain fell in the Texas Hill Country over a span of several hours early Friday, causing water levels to quickly rise, according to the weather forecasting company AccuWeather. The area is naturally prone to flash flooding, but this was an especially bad storm that hit during the vulnerable overnight hours, experts said. Dozens of deaths have been reported, along with numerous rescues. But like I said, here we go. Read this part right here. Meteorologists said that an atmosphere warmed by human-caused climate change can hold more moisture and allow bad storms to dump more rain, though it's hard to connect specific storms to a
lot of resources under this land, probably a bunch of lithium, probably a bunch of all kind of, probably some rare earth minerals under there.
Warming planet so soon after they occur. The article goes on to quote this meteorologist, and this is not the only article. In a warming climate, we know that the atmosphere has more moisture to give, to hold on to, and then to release. But also the thing that we know about climate change is that our rain events are not as uniform as what they used to be. So you'll get these big rain events happening in localized areas, tapping into the historic level of moisture in the atmosphere. So again, just for a recap, it was climate change that hit this localized area to cause these flash floods, to wipe out this girls' camp, cause all this destruction, and again, end a lot of lives. And you know what? I fully agree. I 100% agree. I do agree it's human intervention that's causing nature to turn into a monster at very specific times, but it's not the type of intervention that you think or they want you to believe. It's not the cow farts. It's not the type of cars you drive. It's not the planes. It just happens to be something else altogether. This something else where they always use news and media to tell you that it's just a conspiracy theory. But for example, let's go ahead and go to this website right here, this government-run website, tdlr.texas.gov. This website is titled Weather Modification, Harvesting the Texas Skies in 2022, a summary of rain enhancement operations in Texas. But I thought weather modification, the government modifying the weather, was just a conspiracy theory. But I guess they get away with it when they call it rain enhancement. The article talks about how back in the 50s and 60s, there were severe, lengthy droughts and how the state and federal governments provided funds for both cloud seeding research and assessing the impact of commercial weather modification projects. But let us go ahead and talk about Texas in the present day, because they go on to say how Texas present day cloud seeding efforts are much more than well considered responses to drought, and they're going to tell us why they need cloud seeding in Texas. So they make their case as to why it's needed, but they go on to tell us that they currently have projects in place. For example, this part of the article goes on to say, each of the cloud seeding projects uses specially equipped aircraft designed to place seeding materials in the form of pyrotechnic devices or flares containing silver iodide and other compounds into convective towers, turrets of growing thunderstorms to induce them to expand and process more atmospheric water. So on one hand, we have news and media telling us it's climate change as to why the clouds in Texas are holding so much water and then releasing them. And yet we have these government-run websites telling us they're shooting things into the clouds of Texas, expanding and creating more water in the clouds. The seeding is achieved by burning flares either mounted on the wings of single and twin engine aircraft or held in racks and dropped ejected from the underside of the aircraft fuselage. Pilots in the aircraft are directed to convective clouds, believed by the meteorologists to be treatable with the seeding agent. Oh, isn't that just the cherry on the top? I bet it's the same meteorologists running to news and media, blaming the cow farts, what we drive, the planes, and so forth, but none of them will mention their role when it comes to seeding these clouds. Timing and targeting are the two critical factors in successful seeding of young thunderstorms. The concerted efforts of both pilots and meteorologists are designed to give the growing cloud a nudge to enable it to be more efficient in the way it uses available cloud droplets to grow raindrops. So in a very vulnerable area, they can just give a cloud a nudge, and now we have hell on earth. Now, I'm not saying this is what happened specifically at Texas Hill Country, but if the so-called powers that be are going to release news and media to point the public in a certain direction, a certain narrative, like human-made climate change, well then anything's fair game. Because we know the direction that they're heading with this. They're going to blame the farmland. They're going to blame the way we travel. This is all about control when it comes to these horrific weather events. But what about how they're seeding the clouds? What about how they are manipulating the weather? What about all these news articles from the government themselves where they are actually admitting to these projects? Are we just going to ignore that? So you can go ahead and read this website yourself. I'll go ahead and link it in the comment section below. There are 5 weather modification projects currently in place to cover all of Texas. Like, for example, we'll go ahead and read this one right here. South Texas Weather Modification Association, the STWMA. The project, with its base of operations in Pleasanton, is also in its 25th consecutive year of operation, having been established in 1997 to see clouds over a target area extending from the base of the Edwards Plateau to near the coastal Bend area of Texas. The STWMA is an alliance of 2 water districts, Evergreen Underground Water Conservation District and the Live Oak Underground Water Conservation District, and a county commission. Seeding activities are directed by a staff of meteorologists working with the National Weather Service Doppler weather radar, data from the airport in Pleasanton. Because the STWMA has ownership of all the resources, technical and human, needed to perform rain enhancement operations at any time, the weather modification project runs on a year-round basis. So they can have rain enhancement, or let's call it what it really is, weather control, weather manipulation, at any time they want it. And best believe it's not just Texas, it's not just the United States, it's all over the world. Just like what we saw with Dubai when those skies turned green and those historic floods occurred. And they pretty much told us it was due to them seeding the clouds. But almost all of us that are fully aware of what's currently taking place with this weather modification, them seeding the clouds, we knew something horrific was going to happen along the lines of very bad weather. Because recently, there have been a lot of anomalies appearing on weather radars, and these meteorologists, these same meteorologists, had to come out and push some kind of agenda. They had to give some kind of pushback. Like they were saying how what we're seeing on these radars were just a glitch. Then we had this very interesting news article come out, which really makes one wonder if this camp was targeted, who was currently attending this camp, because this article from the New York Post goes on to say, Christian summer camp where girls were missing during devastating flooding has been attended by daughters of Texas political elite for 100 years. The article goes on to say the all-girls Christian summer camp in Texas, where a frantic search is underway for survivors of a catastrophic flood, has been a destination for the daughters of Texas political elite since it was founded nearly a century ago. Camp Mystic, situated along the Guadalupe River in the tiny town of Hunt, has been a beloved summer retreat for some of the most influential young women in the Lone Star State and national politics, according to a 2011 Texas Monthly story the Post discovered Friday. Yeah, they just happened to come across this story, make this connection, and publish this article around the exact same time these floods occurred. The daughters of former Texas governors Dan Moody, Price Daniel, and John Connally, who was shot as he sat next to President John F. Kennedy when he was assassinated in Dallas in 1963, all attended the camp, according to the outlet. So the daughters, granddaughters, and great-granddaughters of high-profile politicians, CEOs, and executives all attended this camp. And this part of the article goes on to say campers would go on to become executives for Neiman Marcus, dance with London's Royal Ballet, own a gym franchise in the former Soviet Union, or marry well and become the kind of intensely focused volunteers who would probably be happier as CEOs, the outlet wrote. This camp, Camp Mystic, which also has a very interesting name, is really giving Skull and Bones vibes. You go to this camp and you become well off. You either own something yourself, you become a CEO, a part of the political elite, or you marry into somebody that's like that. This person right here even goes to say, Catherine Jones, a Mystic alum, I don't care where my goddaughters go to college, but I do care where she goes to camp, and she only recommends Camp Mystic. So again, I really wonder who was at the camp at this time, if there was any targeted individual or individuals that was at that camp on July 4th. Because I go right back to that AP article, right, where it said in the early morning hours, when it's easy to catch people by surprise. I mean, I think this happened around 4 a.m., so yeah, it really did catch people by surprise. So now we have Marjorie Taylor Greene stepping in and wants to make it a felony, pushing a bill to make it a felony for anybody involved in very severe weather manipulation that can cause a lot of destruction. But at the same time, we're getting news articles like this. Marjorie Taylor Greene pushes ignorant conspiracy theory hours after Texas flooding. It's a ignorant conspiracy theory, even though we have straight from the Texas government that they have these projects seeding the clouds. And this article comes from Indy 100, and they go on to mention how on July 5th, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she went on X and tweeted out, I am introducing a bill that prohibits the injection, release, or dispersion of chemicals or substances into the atmosphere for the express purposes of altering weather, temperature, climate, or sunlight intensity. It will be a felony offense. I absolutely hate coming across these articles. They make me angry to no end, because we even have over in the United Kingdom, they are admitting to spraying Satan in the skies to block out the sunlight. I'm sure we're doing the exact thing over here. And at the same time, they are admitting to seeding the clouds. And yet it's a ignorant conspiracy theory to even mention weather modification and the government in the same breath. The bill will be co-sponsored by Tim Burchett, the Republican representative for Tennessee's 2nd Congressional District, and it goes on to say it's not the first time Greene has pushed the bizarre conspiracy theory about weather modification, as back in October she said they can control the weather and that it was ridiculous for anyone to lie and say it can't be done. She then followed this up by clarifying who they were in her initial tweet, saying that some of them are listed on the NOAA, the NOAA being the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which had funding cut as part of Donald Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, which was signed into law by the president this week. Then they had this Democratic representative from Florida, Jared Moskowitz, mock her. He reposted her tweet, and then he went on to say, I'm introducing a bill that prohibits the injection, release, or dispersion of stupidity into Congress. And this tweet got 15,000 likes. It's absolutely mind-blowing how many people out there still believe that weather modification is just a conspiracy theory, even though they admit to it. Let's go ahead and run this scenario when it comes to the cloud seeding projects over in Texas. Let's go ahead and say there's nothing suspicious going on. They're only running these projects when there's severe droughts. They need the rain. So they bring in the cloud seeding technology. But what happens if they mess up? Let's say they go a little too far. They put a little too much of this stuff into the clouds, and there is a severe flash flood that caused all this destruction. Will they admit to going a little too far when it comes to cloud seeding? No, they will not. They will never admit to it. They'll just go ahead and say it was a freak of nature storm, and that it was they'll go ahead and blame it on, again, the cow farts, the cars, the planes, and things they always blame climate change on. They'll never say that, oh, we put a little bit too much silver iodine into one of the clouds, having the clouds hold a little bit too much moisture, and they released it all, they dumped it all. No, they'll never admit to that, and I don't know anybody that believes that they will. The whole article is about them bashing people who believe in this quote-unquote nut job conspiracy theory, or how things like this just do not exist. They cannot control the weather. I can't. I just can't with these articles. There is an amazing video by Steve Jarvis, and he wants everybody to share it. It's about how he found out this Rainmaker technology over in Texas. So it's not just these projects, but also, again, this Rainmaker technology that exists.
My name's Steve Jarvis. Do y'all want answers for what happened in Texas? You want answers? I have the answers. And you are going to have to do some research on how to get it. But there's your picture right there of Texas and the big flood. Okay, July 4th. And all those little girls missing, I bless them, bless their families. But I want to tell you, all of this flooding in Texas and Rainmaker has publicly available NOAA docs on their cloud seeding project. Everyone must start this investigation. If you want to know what happened, this is where you start. Everybody's showing all the flooding and everything. So I'm giving you the documents, I'm telling you. So what you're going to do, you're going to go to the NOAA library, right? And you got to scroll down to the bottom of the page, but you'll see this is weather and climate collections. So you're going to scroll down to the bottom of that page there, and you're going to type in Texas.
They want all this land.
And what you're going to find is, you're going to find this. I've highlighted it here. You're going to find, and it'll tell you when they were seeding, okay? Because let's face it, folks, 30 foot of water in an hour at 4 a.m., people didn't have a chance. So when you get down here, what you're going to find out is it'll pull up a page like this, and you pull it up, and then it tells you the companies. Isn't that exciting? You want to know answers? Here's what you need to do. You need to call your governor, call your senator, call Chip Roy. He's a good one to talk to. And if Chip would like to talk to me, I'm right now working with 2 states writing weather modification bills that make it a crime, and it has huge penalties. I went to Washington, D.C., and I spoke and presented my new farm plan to Maha about creating 1 million new farms. You know what was first thing in my farm plan? Stop weather modification. You know what they wanted me to do? Move it to the bottom or erase it altogether. You know why? Because they don't want you to know. Because weather modification is, I'm bone dry up here. I'm up here in my potato fields, and everybody else is soaking wet. So they can make it too dry or too wet. And I know this is hard to swallow, folks, and it's hard to wrap your head around. But here's what you can do. What it does, it shows West Texas WMA right here. Rain enhancement, hail suppression. It tells you on these documents. It tells you exactly. The company is Rainmaker.
Crazy, bro.
And that's who's doing it.
Now they're all over the news with a climate change scam.
The cloud seeding in that area.
And they did it.
What you can do is on all these documents, there's tons and tons of this document, but it's so much to read and go through here. But you can bring this up. Now, listen, there is a Clear Skies movement. Clear Skies movement in Idaho. You need to go to Clear Skies movement and go to that page. Tons of information there. You can go to Missouri Clean Skies. Go to that page there, Facebook page. I need you to start a clean skies or Clear Skies movement in your town, okay? Because if you're on these sites, you get all this information that we have, and it tells you and shows you all this stuff. So here's the company right here. If you go to X, you can see Rainmaker Technology Corporation. Go in there and ask them. Go in there and ask them, were you cloud seeding down there in Texas? Go ask them. Go ask him. And here's the owner right here. Here's his account on X, Augustus Dorico. He's the guy that owns Rainmaker. Why don't y'all message him? Ask him, was he cloud seeding in Texas?
This storm isn't a once in a lifetime, it's a once in forever. I found some very weird stuff, but first, We have areas close to San Antonio now being flooded, around Austin, other rivers, etc. The death toll so far, as the number climbs every 30 minutes, so they find more bodies, is now 47. And now they're saying there's actually 27 young girls missing. Right here you see a post by New York Post detailing the whole camp and all that situation. And completely unrelated, not relevant whatsoever. At the same time, with this hurricane tropical storm coming to the East Coast and this stuff happening in Texas, we have the Weather Channel doing a report on this. Their words.
Captain Hart wrote in this logbook that he and his co-pilots flew directly through the cloud and released dry ice. Then they descended to check if any rain would fall.
And again, completely unrelated, they just did the story a few hours ago, again, on the Weather Channel. The most insane part about this storm was the rising of the river by 26 foot in 45 minutes. I've never even heard of such a thing in my life. We have Texas officials blaming the National Weather Service for not being able to call this the way it was. We also have the National Weather Service months prior coming out and saying they can't detect things like they used to because of all the changes.
Yeah, but the Republicans gonna have to eat this too, because they cut money that was going to early warning systems and radar, all that type of shit. You know, they call that waste. They absolutely did.
You know, administrative federal things have been changed. It's almost like it's the perfect situation for the perfect storm.
Look at your own forecast, and the amount of rain that fell in this specific location was never in any of those forecasts.
Now, again, completely irrelevant, not related whatsoever. I'm just trying to get familiar with the area. Just 1 month ago, Kirk County citizens were all standing up saying, we're not going to be having any lithium battery storage here. That needed to stand up, and you can read it. This was Camp Mystic, where all the girls were that went missing. It's just
it's a bunch of lithium under the ground and a bunch of rare earth minerals. They want to remove these people so they can take what's on all of this land. That's a fact.
It's an absolute nightmare. And now we also have Greg Abbott assigning tomorrow prayer day for Texas. I'll update y'all on the hurricane stuff tomorrow.
That video comes from Moon Henry, and it's just so interesting how, in the timing that the Weather Channel, they are showing us videos of them seeding the clouds, creating these storms and so forth. And at the exact same time, we have storms on the way and this horrific flood over in Texas, where we found the articles of them telling us that they are seeding the clouds over in Texas.
Two storms coming from opposite directions, they collide and they don't move. That's not normal. Follow and stick with this, because once you see what actually happened over Texas, you may never look at the sky the same way again. Doppler radar clearly shows two systems forming separately and then merging right over Kirk County, not moving, just dumping water. So was this natural, or was this engineered? Lyndon B. Johnson, a Texas president, once said, "He who controls the weather controls the world." That wasn't science fiction. It was a warning. We know cloud seeding is real. Texas has used it. But what if two seeded systems were accidentally or covertly sent towards each other? And when they merged, it caused the perfect stall. Could this be the kind of silent weapon people have warned about for years? No explosions, no media coverage, just floods. Everyone was watching fireworks, but maybe the real attack came from above on the day no one would question odd weather. So was it geoengineering gone wrong, or something worse? I'm not claiming anything, but we should be asking questions. And if this shook you, my book, Faith That Fights Back, was made for moments like this. We can't stop the storm, but we can stand through it. And in spite of the floods, the truth always surfaces.
That video comes from Fuel Your Mind 10 and is so true. At the end of the day, no matter what, the truth will always surface. But in any case, thank you so much for watching.
What's up, everybody? I hope you guys had a good 4th of July weekend, even though we're going to talk about some bummer stuff here off topic. But we went out to this lake did a little fishing, and I was looking at this engineering, thinking about how today they're trying to teach kids that the boomers ruined it for everybody. Well, they started construction on this in May 1940, had to stop, go over and fight Dub Dub Deuce, and then came back and had it completed by 1948. That's about 100 yards high, probably 400 or 500 feet thick across the bottom, and about 2 miles long, making this big, beautiful lake that everybody enjoys until this day. And they didn't just do it here, they did it all across the country. None of these kids watch my channel, but we need to be teaching this to the younger generation. The problems we have today in this country are due to the financiers and not your grandparents. You guys have repeatedly proven to me that you have no idea what hard work is like they did. Anyway, absolutely horrible weekend down in Texas. This was just a river campground scene, exactly like what I was just showing you. I'm surrounded by miles and miles of the exact same terrain, only I think they're a little more deserty there, which makes for really bad flash flooding. Sand doesn't absorb water and it reaches complete saturation very quickly. So I've seen these flash floods out in the desert, and it's not even raining. It hasn't rained all day, and a wall of water will start coming down with all kinds of debris on top of it because a big storm happened 50 miles up to the north. The water here rose 26 feet in 45 minutes, they're estimating, which is just insane. The video we're watching here was further downriver, I believe, during daylight, but this happened overnight in the Mystic Camp region. And nobody expects anything like this. You could see at the beginning of this video, it was about 30, 40 feet down to the water at the beginning. And we've got a bunch of jump cuts here, but this guy was probably here 45 minutes or an hour filming this. And by the end of it, it's over the bridge. If you're aware this is happening, then you can easily outwalk this up the hill. But the thing is by the time people woke up and realized this was going on, then the water had already encompassed everyone. If you've ever spent much time in a river, then you know even a foot of flowing water can really throw your balance off. Then when it's dark, you're in a campground that you're not familiar with, so now all the landmarks look different to you in the dark, plus the water.
That was a nightmare.
This is a horrible tragedy here. Since I've lived here, I guess about the last 3 years, we've had, I think, 3 really freak hard rains where it only took, some of them as little as 30 minutes and everything was flooding. This is from last fall. But, during that, I'm sitting there thinking, man, if this would have continued for 3 hours, then this drainage gully would have turned into what I was just showing you. And this runs right through the middle of town, houses on each side of it. This runs right through my yard, and of course the basement flooded. So this all happens in 30 minutes to an hour of heavy, heavy rain. Look at Hurricane Helene last year that Google doesn't want you to know about. And it was centered right here, 1 p.m. Friday, right here, 1 p.m. Saturday, and then 1 a.m. Saturday right here. So that was about 36 hours of torrential downpours all in one spot. And now with the internet, it's the automatic reaction to say, well, they did it. They were steering this thing, and that's why it parked in the same spot for 36 hours. I don't know. They very well could be, but I haven't heard anyone explain how they're doing it. I've heard speculation that they're using NEXRAD radars and pulsing it with it to steer it, but also radars track these things. So of course they would be bouncing signals off of it, keeping track of where the front is as it approaches. And I'm not here to argue whether that's the case or not. I'm just saying that every time something happens now, whether it's a quake, a fire, a flood, the internet's automatic reaction is they did it. There's nothing that happens by chance like it has all throughout history. One thing that's good to see here is federal emergency management isn't in here hindering progress. These are a bunch of locals out here doing exactly what I would do if this was one of the rivers around here, grabbing a chainsaw and going up there and helping out. That's what America is. I see these city comrades talking America all the time. They don't know what America is. Those people would be sitting there on their keyboards, furiously typing away about the lack of government response because they're a bunch of little pinko pussies. Real men load up the truck and go frickin' help out. I mean, I even saw people blaming this on Trump. And I mean, that really is just how despicable they are. horrible tragedy, and all they can think of is supposedly scoring some political points. They're just one trick monkeys. And this is how stupid that is. It's, hey, look, I've got some beautiful flowers blooming in my tree. Oh no, they fell off. Damn it, Trump. I'm not even defending the guy. They just act like now he's God and everything that happens was preordained by him before breakfast. Anyway, they have been running rain enhancement projects, aka weather mods, in this area, which it shouldn't be any surprise for anybody. I've shown how they used to pull licenses for $5 back in 1950s California. When Dubai flooded last year, it was admitted at first that they had been tinkering with things. I actually read the article from the scientists that said, yeah, we should have left that one alone. But if you look it up now, they say that no, there was no engineering involved. But I'd say that these rain enhancement projects are pretty standard in desert areas by this point. So I'm not surprised in the least to see that they have this project there. The question is, did they mess with this storm? Like I said, the internet's reaction to everything that's happened for the last 10 years is they did it. So sorry, you guys have cried wolf so many times that now, even though this is in that area, that doesn't actually mean that that's what happened. So I'm not just going to jump automatically to that conclusion. Sorry. I would say that they have very meticulous records of what they have and have not done, and that it will probably be under investigation after this, because unlike how the internet makes this out to be, they don't just snap their fingers and it rains. First off, there has to be a front coming through with moisture in the air. They can't just invent moisture for it to fall. It has to already be there, but normally it would have passed over this area. But if they did mess with this, then they would have been sending planes up yesterday to seed it, and those flight logs exist somewhere. Here's what reports say about this. The trigger was a weak frontal boundary that stalled over the hill country, providing the lift necessary to ignite convective storms. Once initiated, these storms became quasi-stationary due to minimal upper level steering winds. As a result, thunderstorms dumped rainfall over the same areas for hours. So as far as publicly available information goes, we know that they can trigger rain to fall that would have otherwise just been moisture that flowed over to another area, and then once it hit a cold front or something, then it would have fell. What's not known for sure is that they can stall an entire front from moving anywhere. Now, some people are going to say that HARP can do that or NexRad can do that. And theoretically, I guess it's possible. I would say if the storm is moving in this direction and you heat the atmosphere out in front of it, making a high pressure system, then it could stall that storm. But I would also think in this scenario, if you were to beam energy to a certain point in the atmosphere and heat things up, then you would have this circular high pressure system. Then when the storm hits that, you would see it split around it. And a lot of people would notice if something like that happened. I don't know that they'd be able to make a big force field wall out of it. And also, realistically speaking, do you guys understand how much energy it would take to heat up just 100-mile radius of atmosphere? My blue dot here is more like 300 or 400 miles. But I would say the amount of energy to heat up that circle, just 1 degree, is probably more energy than the US puts out in a year. I mean, seriously, since it's hot right now, we'll do the opposite. If everybody in America opened their doors and put their ACs on full blast, how long do you think it would take to cool off the atmosphere? Well, it'd take till next winter, because our air conditioners would never change a thing. Nature would. So I've heard all kinds of theories about this, but there are some practical limitations. I've heard people say that they can heat up the entire ionosphere. Well, okay, where's all that energy coming from? They don't have a reactor here on site, so I'm assuming they're probably getting hydroelectric or coal power. And you think that's producing enough energy to heat the entire ionosphere? We get solar flares that eject more energy than mankind will ever make. So much energy, the entire ionosphere glows different colors. And that doesn't even warm the lower atmosphere where storms are located. So while it's pretty much unquestionable that they can seed a cloud and make moisture fall that would have otherwise flown off to somewhere else, I don't think they can make an entire storm stop moving. I mean, that's like saying, okay, make the wind stop blowing across America for an hour. Do you think we can somehow do that? I don't. But now, all of that being said, and everybody calling me a shill because I didn't automatically go to man-made, this could have been man-made. They may have triggered this, but I don't think they would have had any control over this stalling. So, did they seed this? Well, back to this report. Days before the storm, the National Weather Service issued flash flood watches for central Texas, highlighting the potential for localized heavy rainfall. However, the forecast used cautious language, emphasizing uncertainty and variability in storm placement. So they knew days ahead of time that this had potential for heavy rainfall. And if that's the case, then would they have seeded it? Well, believe it or not, this isn't all just made for nefarious purposes. This is usually for agricultural reasons, or you could possibly drop all of that rain in a particular watershed and fill back up a reservoir or something. Take notes, California. But I really doubt there's a whole team of people working on this just to flood out residential areas and harm innocent people. Now, Operation Popeye in Vietnam, yeah, they intentionally flooded areas. But I doubt you've got a bunch of Americans in America intentionally working on a project to hurt other Americans. I mean, one, this is one of the last places on Earth with any strategic value. If you were going to use this just to cause problems, then you would knock out the Mississippi River Bridge in Memphis or something like that, where then it takes a day to go around. Nobody is strategically targeting the Guadalupe River in rural Texas. So, knowing that this had the potential for heavy rainfall days in advance, I would assume the people that are doing these projects are smart enough to understand that they shouldn't mess with this one. But in Dubai, they did it there. Yet I would assume any professional in this field would use that as a case study of why not to do it. So I would think they'd have sense enough to leave this one alone, but you never know. You can see that people are already sending letters asking if they did or not. And if they did, they're probably going to get the book thrown at them, because you're not going to get too many people in law enforcement looking the other way when 20 teenage girls are missing. I think the last count I heard was 52 people altogether. But at this point, I don't know. And a lot of people get mad that I don't automatically go with, well, since it's there, then they had to have done it. Well, they could have, but I don't know for sure. They very well could have not. Just because they have this program, it doesn't mean they hit every storm front that comes through. But this is just the way the internet works. Like I just showed about Lahaina the other day. As people come on, make big claims, do a mic drop, walk away, and all kinds of people just assume that that's the truth from now on. But when you go back and look at it 2 years after the fact, nothing lines up with what they say. And unlike some people, I'm perfectly fine with saying, I don't know right now. I'm waiting on more information, and then I'll tell you what I think. So I'll just leave it at that for now. Static out.
We got the proof. He's just talking. We're going to look into some data.
There's people in it. Oh my god, there's so many people in it. Yeah, it's over.
Welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. Today's video is going to be on the absolutely devastating Texas flash flood that happened approximately 4 hours from my house. As I'm speaking and making this video, my search and rescue team, Premier Search and Rescue, is being deployed out to that area to assist in the recovery efforts, along with Melody Wright, who is going to help articulate what's going on the ground, as I will also be there within about 48 hours of this video. Now, today's video, we're going to go into the stats on what exactly happened with the Guadalupe River flooding, being that it raised about 26 feet in 2 hours. So we're going to go over all of the stats, the location. We're going to watch several videos that showing you guys that the damage is extremely similar to Hurricane Helene. And then we're also going to go into who's missing. We're going to take a look at Camp Mystic. We're going to see the children that are missing there. We're also going to go into the weather reporting system and ask questions like, did those people have enough time to evacuate? We're also going to go into a few videos of survivors of that ordeal. And then we're going to end this video talking about the active weather modification that is going on there right now in 2 of the counties that declared disaster. And then we're going to ask the question is the weather modification have any relationship with the history of flooding of the Guadalupe River? And Mitch Vexler, before I begin, and this was an extremely difficult video to make, good morning, sir. How are you today?
Like you said, this is tough. You know, when you hear a child screaming for its life, that'll get your attention. So our goal here today isn't to pick on any source of a problem, but it is to get people's attention and at the end make them perfectly aware that certain things should not have happened and what people can do to possibly avoid these types of problems. And these types of problems, make no mistake, it's not just Texas. It has happened in North Carolina. It has happened in Las Vegas. These flash floods occur. Flash floods have occurred in downtown Dallas. These things happen. But the question is, as a society, what can be done to make people situationally aware to get out of harm's way before that issue will happen? Flash floods do happen. Sewers back up. Water systems can't handle it. Our goal here is to make people aware these are the possibilities and what can be done ideally to help avoid it.
Yes, and let's not forget that China actually just recently had a, if I'm not mistaken, a historical flood happen in their country. We've been having flooding in New Mexico, Roswell. We've been having flooding happen all over the place. And I have a new theory on possibly why that might be. But let's start with the stats and let's talk about what happened. The flood happened about 4 hours northwest-ish of Houston, Texas, in an area called Hunt, Texas. And along Hunt, Texas, and along this whole area on your screen is the Guadalupe River. Flash flood emergencies were issued in 5 counties in West Texas, including northwestern Bandera County, northeastern Tom Green County, east central Kerr County, west central Kendall County, where between 5 to 11 inches fell. However, disaster declarations was also extended to include Bexar County, Burnett County, Caldwell, Guadalupe, Travis, and Williamson counties. The water went up in the Guadalupe River 26 feet in a period of 2 hours. Approximately 850 people rescued, 50 fatalities, and over 20 people missing, most of them children so far. Let's take a listen to the sheriff.
Starting tomorrow, we're going to do 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. tomorrow for y'all. We're doing the best we can to get you as much information as fast as we can. As I tell you today, and I expect tomorrow and the next couple of days, information's changing rapidly and quickly. Got a few notes here. We continue to have hundreds of first responders on the ground, water in this search and rescue process. We have a lot of people here. We got a lot of help, but we're very fortunate. Here's some new updated numbers for y'all. As of 5:30, we have recovered 43 deceased individuals in Kerr County. Among these who are deceased, we have 28 adults and 15 children. 12 adults pending identification and 5 children are pending identification at this time. Our missing persons call center is open to those reporting missing loved ones. The phone number is 830-258-1111.
As of early Sunday morning when we're recording this, the Texas flood death toll rises to 50 as desperate search continues for over 20 girls from camp. And it's more than just them that's missing. These people are also missing. But what I want to do now, before we go into the missing and the recovery aspects of this, I want you to ask yourself 2 questions. Number 1, is this similar to what happened in Hurricane Helene? And number 2, how can you find people in that debris without dogs? Look at this, guys.
Oh my God. Flat tree.
The amount of water is absolutely shocking. How much water is here right now?
Those green people right there. They're looking. Oh, Jesus, please.
I look at water. From what I just saw, it looks very similar to what happened in Hurricane Helene, especially in areas like Irwin, Tennessee, where this massive, giant body of water just obliterated everything in its path in an unimaginable amount of water. So when you were watching that footage, did you get any feelings or any sense that what happened is very similar to the devastation that happened in eastern Tennessee in regard to Hurricane Helene? Is this similar?
These people, water is unforgiving, man. These people playing God, man. They can't get, man. Water is deadly. They teach you when you're young. A little teaspoon can kill you, can drown you. You can drown in a teaspoon of water. Teach you that water is deadly and it's unforgiving, man.
Water, a little bit of water can literally move a giant boulder. So the answer to Travis's question is that mathematically, these things can actually be quantified in terms of the rate of speed that the water was moving through a given area, how much water jumped its banks, when it jumped its banks. These are all things that can be quantified. But if you can imagine in North Carolina, you've got huge mountains on either side, water, rain, hits the mountain, slams into the valley, and all of a sudden that water in the valley just comes up at a huge rate of speed. So water literally will climb up. And here in Texas, you have rains, which is quite shocking, but I've seen it, where the rain coming off the ground literally climbs up 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches. So it's literally like somebody turning on a fire hose. Well, up in North Texas, we don't have the mountains. But nonetheless, the rain climbs dramatically. And if the earth cannot absorb the water, then that water's got to go somewhere. And then it starts going into the ditches, and then the ditches overflow. Then it goes to the lakes. Well, on its way to the lake, those ditches start to erode, and next thing you know, you have mudslides. And that is notorious. That description is exactly what happens in Vegas. The land in Vegas is part caliche, which is clay, and the clay does not absorb water. Anything that hits it just bounces off. So again, Vegas has the mountains on either side, rain hits it, Vegas floods. And that happens once every couple of years. So these things happen, and it is mathematically quantifiable. The problem is the awareness, and we'll get to that shortly.
Yeah, we'll move into that part now, guys. We're going to talk about situational awareness. I want to pull up the weather reports, and I want to go basically minute by minute, play by play, to see if these people actually got enough warning to evacuate. But let me start by showing you where Camp Mystic is located. Camp Mystic is located in Hunt, Texas. Is this location that you guys can see right here. Now, this camp is actually a well-known camp. A lot of politicians send their children here. There's actually a politician that had his children at this camp. They were saved, but this is it right here. The river right here on the right is the Guadalupe River. As of right now, from Camp Mystic alone, these are 20 of the angels that are currently missing, where rescue workers are frantically searching. In addition to these 20 children, 7 additional adults from Camp Mystic are also missing. I think it's really important to ask the question, what happened and how much time do they have even to evacuate? Because if any camp is located along a river,
it's crazy. It's like the 1900 and hear me, 1900 storm in Galveston, Texas, bro. And it's crazy. This is 2025. It's unforgivable. In 1900 storm, they didn't have a seawall, so when the waters hit, it just flooded the city. And the nuns, like these kids, had to. That might have been a mistake that they tied all of the children to the teachers. So, you know, they all died together, but that's crazy because it's just like, I'm pretty sure the children had some type of camp director or something that was with them. It's crazy, bro. 2025, the 1900 storm. That's 125 years later, you know.
river, there should be a procedure in place if there's a flood warning. But the first flood watch, okay, so the first flood watch happened July 3rd at 2:35 p.m. So this is the first indication that you guys see right here that there is a potential disaster heading this way. But if you guys look on the right here, it's not too much in Kerrville. It's kind of southwest of Kerrville. You can kind of see that right here. Now, as time goes on, another watch is issued at 8:54 p.m. the night prior, July 3rd. And as you guys can see here, the area is much larger. It doubled to triple the flood watch area. It's now consumed Kerrville as well as areas in San Antonio. The first flash flood warning, and this is really, really important to understand. The first warning where it's saying move immediately, see this here, move immediately to higher ground, avoid walking or driving through floodwaters, okay? This was in Medina. The first flood warning came at 11:42 p.m., so in the middle of the night, July 3rd. As time goes on, the first dangerous warning comes out at 12:27 a.m. July 4th. So again, in the middle of the night. But this is saying here, flash flood likely overnight with significant impacts possible. And this is from National Weather Service. We get an additional flash flood warning right here at 1:14 a.m. in Hunt City. So my thinking so far looking at this, because this happened in the middle of the night, is someone's cell phone should have been going off. So when this is issued at 1:14 a.m., all of the counselors' cell phone, as long as they had reception, should have gone off. Another flash flood was issued again in Medina at 1:54 a.m. Again, in the middle of the night. I understand probably everyone is sleeping. An additional flood watch was issued at 2:37 a.m. Now we get an additional very dangerous warning. You guys can see here a very dangerous flash flooding event is ongoing across central Kerr County into northwest Bandera County. Now, this came out at 3:06 a.m. on July 4th. Remember, the first warning was around midnight. We get another flash flood warning right here at 3:35 a.m. Again, people's phones should be going off. At 4:23 a.m., another dangerous warning is issued. A swath of 5 to 10 inches of rainfall has been estimated the last 3 to 6 hours across south central Kerr County. This is a particularly dangerous situation, and a flash flood emergency is in effect. So this is our first flash flood emergency warning. That warning, as far as I can tell, the emergency warning happened at 4:23 a.m. when it was already too late. And I say that because at 5:08 a.m., they came out with this. The Guadalupe River at Hunt continues to rise sharply and has reached the second highest height on record, higher than the 1987 flood. So if the first warning was at midnight, 4 hours later, Guadalupe River peaks, which means they had about 4 hours to evacuate. Before I talk to Mitch about situational awareness, I want to first listen to some stories of survival. You guys are about to listen to some children that were at church camp that actually escaped the floodwaters. Listen to what this young child has to say and look at the courage on his face.
My name is Ruffin Boyette. I'm one of the campers from Camp Lahana, one of the camps that flooded. And I had a firsthand view of the flood, and so the cabins were flooding, and the walls were like they broke down, and all of the campers in those cabins had to go up on the rafters, and they had to wait there until they could swim out. And my brother here, he had to swim out of his cabin.
Really? Here, do you want to here, can I mic you up some? Here you go. One moment. Okay. And so you had to swim out of your cabin?
Yes.
Can you tell me about that?
So the flood started getting bigger, and it was going up to, we have bunk beds in our cabins, and it was going up to the top bunk, and we had one choice, and we had to swim out of our cabins.
What time was it?
It was like, we woke up at
we had to wake up at like 4 a.m.
Like a horror movie.
What'd you wake up to? Say people telling you to wake up?
I didn't fall asleep. I didn't fall asleep. Like, I couldn't sleep because of the lightning.
Yeah, people were screaming that there was a flood. There was a lot of water on the floor.
Yeah, I was the first one awake, and basically one of the other kids in my cabin, he woke up the counselor, and the counselor was like, what? And then all the other campers woke up.
Yeah.
So that what and they're like, "Oh my God, we're flooding."
Yeah, and some cabins like flooded away.
So what?
But nobody died.
No one died.
I've been looking in the brush piles for Mary Barrett, who's 7 years old, and for Cece and for Clay Meadows, 26. Cece's 7, and another girl that's 8. We had a lot of people that have helped out. Just landowners have just come down and they've swept with us. We have chainsaw crews that just grew out of nowhere that just showed up, and we cleared roads, and the whole community has just showed up. People from the river, people coming in, military, the police, the locals, and everybody's working together. They're asking us, we're like, "Hey, we have a chainsaw." They're like, "Yeah, use it. We need it here." There's no egos. It's just people wanting to find people. So it is in the hands of God right now. We have a bunch of people that are out and see the force that the river did. I mean, to do that, it's like hitting it with a bulldozer. So anybody that's surviving, it's an act of God, and that's where we need to follow, is praying that God will save.
Let's talk about situational awareness. I consider you someone that takes preparation for many, many situations. As I do, I prepare, right? Their first warning was issued roughly, let's just say 14 hours, okay, before the Guadalupe River hit. It peaked. So you have a 14-hour watch. So you have your 2:30 p.m. watch for a flood, just watch for a flood, 2:30 p.m. July 3rd. You have your first warning. Okay, some would say a watch is a warning, but you have your first official warning issued in the middle of the night at 11:40 p.m. 4 hours later, Guadalupe River hits the peak. What type of situational awareness can you articulate that may have made a difference in the situation?
Special forces are taught situational awareness. And in this particular case, beacons, SOS devices, even iPhone, most people don't even know that iPhone is capable of it, but iPhone is capable of an SOS. Garmin InReach, AM radios to find out what's going on when you've got a storm coming. If your power goes down, those AM radios, you can buy them for 10 or 12 bucks, but they're worth their weight in gold. Because if you don't have communications, that's one fast way to get it. You can even crank them up so they don't run on a battery. Weather sirens. Did the sirens go off? Apparently, it doesn't seem like it did, but that story will come out shortly. Over the years, I was developing in Capel, Texas one time, and a bulldozer struck a rattlesnake den. And I realized there happened to be a cop standing next to me watching this at the same time. And we were both horrified because neither one of us knew what to do. And I didn't know that a bulldozer could move in those directions, but basically the blades of the dozer were going up and down and snake parts were flying all over the place. So when I got back to my car, I thought about it and I realized I know nothing about this. I'm from Canada. What in the world do I know about a rattlesnake? So that realization started me going down the path of being prepared, because what if an employee gets into trouble? What are you going to do? What if a cop isn't there? What if a nurse isn't there? So over the years, I started putting together go bags. My car has a go bag, and it's got battery jumpers, cables, it's got all sorts of stuff in it. That's just for the car. What I came up with was, because it can be a little daunting, and FEMA actually has a pretty decent list of things that you should have around you as a go bag or home kit. The point being that even your children should be taught about this, right? So if your child had, in this particular case, an iPhone with an SOS signal in it and was in their pocket, finding those children in such an emergency would have been that much faster. So the go bags that I have come up with were 1 hour, a 4 hour, a day go bag, and a week go bag. And each one of them has medical gear in it. Each one of them has a signal device in it. I even have straws for drinking water if necessary. you have to realize that one of those camps, the report is that it had 750 children in it. The problem here is this could have been that much worse. And what precautions were taken? Well, those precautions may or may not have been taken. And like I said, we're not here to beat up on anybody. The idea here is if you know what situational awareness is, and you are at least prepared with medical, with SOS devices, you know where your children are, and you know that your children are trained how to use these devices, including some medical, then that helps take the vast majority of the risk out of the equation. And part of the problem is that people assume, well, the counselors will look after this, or the camp will look after this, or the police will look after this. Those assumptions are patently false, they are foolish, and they have been proven lethal. And it's not just here in Texas. They have been proven lethal in North Carolina, Las Vegas. People lose their lives in the underpasses in Dallas. When the floods come, they have an underpass. In a minute, that underpass can fill up with water. And they think to themselves, oh, I can make it to the other side. I'll just drive through it. Yeah, no, you can't. And you're dead. So it really is about situational awareness for the parents, for the children, and for anybody, because these floods are no joke. This stuff is lethal, it's dangerous, and it happens in a matter of minutes. Know what you have in terms of the equipment and the education, and know how to use it.
Mitch, I can tell you my two daughters are the same age as those missing children, and they got back 3 weeks ago from church camp. So this hit me hard. In fact, I wasn't going to go out there. As you know, I tore all the muscles in my Achilles. I have a bone sticking out of my heel. But I was just sitting there, just praying about this. I just kept thinking about those little girls. I can't. We talk about community. I've been training for this. We have a search and rescue team. We got to deploy. This is devastation. And when we sent my child to camp, they told us we can't contact her. So I can only imagine what's going on in the minds of these parents. And then I'm also wondering, I can't imagine the answer would be no, but did they have reception? Because I can't imagine children waking up their counselors to this. I can't imagine a situation to where if I was in this situation, I would allow that to happen. I just don't understand this. Now, I know people don't take these warnings seriously. Hindsight's 2020, but that's why situational awareness is so important. Now I'm going to go into something else. And this next segment of this video, you guys, to me, when I started researching this, it was absolutely shocking. And what I'm going to do now is I want to show you guys the active weather modification rain enhancement programs that are happening in that area. Then I'm going to pull up the timelines of flooding in the Guadalupe River. And then I'm going to ask you guys whether or not you guys think it's this flooding is just a coincidence and that potentially has nothing to do with weather modification. But let's start here. Weather modification and rain enhancement programs are very real and have been happening for a very long time. This is the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation for Weather Modification. And I want you guys to know that I've already gone through all of this information. I have taken notes with an emphasis on the dates. You guys can see dates here, 1998, 2002, about 50 years, 40 different counties. It started in 1987, but I also want to highlight this. It's not just one program. Currently, they have at least 5 different, it's a free-for-all, it's crazy. They have 5 different water enhancement projects. Here's the map of rain enrichment projects in Texas. And I want to really focus on this green area right here, because this green area, let me zoom in here, okay, is STWMA, again, South Texas Weather Modification Association. And I also want to point out, here's the counties that they're in. This county, Bandera and Bexar, have issued emergency disaster declarations. So I will say that there is active rain enhancement programs going on in the counties, actively going on in the counties that were devastated. They also go on to say that the effects can be far-reaching as far as 100 miles, which would make sense because look at the neighboring counties right here. Kerr and Kendall border Bandera and Bexar. So again, you guys, there is no question on whether or not there is rain enhancement projects and whether or not they're active in that area, because that answer is yes. In fact, here's the company right here. It says Rainmaker Technology Corporation. This is the company, and these are the people that were actively doing weather modification in those counties. This is very, very real. The next question that I asked is this just a one-off situation, or is there any correlation to historical flooding of the Guadalupe River? I went all the way back to 1987. And what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to read the floods that happened, and then I'm going to tell you if I found any programs of weather modification that were happening during that period of time. But the Guadalupe River, it didn't really flood that often until around 1987. Now, in 1987, this event was considered the deadliest weather event in the Guadalupe River's history until 2 days ago. Now, what happened here is a bus and van attempting to evacuate a Baptist youth camp were engulfed by a surge of water that led to the death of 10 teenagers. So again, 1987.
It could have been some type of satanic. See, you got satanic people with their heart machine, bro. Y'all know that. It's the satanic Luciferians is in charge of weather manipulation. That's what people don't understand. So when they keep saying about this Christian camp and all that, like this is now we getting into sacrifice here. Now we're getting into some ritualistic shit, and people who don't, you can't think that deep in this, not on YouTube. It's some sick shit went on purpose.
Youth camp for church, children swept away.
Come on,
that has already happened in 1987.
Everybody named Mama know the kid. They're talking about these kids. Hey, we want the bodies of them kids too. I do not want to hear they can't find them 20-something missing kids. We're not going for that. Yes, you can. Don't make us come look for the motherfucking kids. See, because I know these sick individuals, to the kids, that mean everything to them. I'm talking about to do harm to them, not to love them. No, to do harm to them. You know, and they love to see kids in fearful, frightened situation. That's how you get that. I'm not gonna say that word, but that stuff that the elite supposedly want to keep themselves looking young. They say it's more potent when a child is in fear. That's when they get it up out of them. So we want them bodies of them kids, man. That's serious business.
When I went into the weather modification reports, I'm going to read this for you guys. Using federal funds to assess the long-running rain enrichment program of the CRMWD in Big Spring area. This program through CRMWD started during 1987. The cloud seeding was performed by a company called TNRCC, which again, they performed cloud seeding experiments starting in 1987. Maybe it's a coincidence. October of 1998, the first flood broke previous records throughout the Guadalupe River Basin, with the river experiencing flash flood conditions. Another weather modification sponsor materialized in 1998. When 3 counties along the Rio Grande formed the Texas Border Weather Modification Association. That organization has been seeding clouds since the summer of 1998 from a base of operation in Del Rio. Early July of 2002, Kerrville, again, see, same area, recorded 19 inches of rain, making it the city's wettest month since August of 1978. This resulted in 12 fatalities and approximately $1 billion in damages, affecting 48,000 homes. Now, a couple things I want to notate as far as weather modification. I find it interesting that a weather modification program called SORA, again, SORA, ended their program because they were cloud seeding in 2002. They ended their program in August, 1 month after those devastating floods. But that's not all. Another group of counties farther south formed the Southwest Texas Rain Enhancement Association in 1999. In 2002, they switched their methods of cloud seeding with 4 of the counties. June 10th, 2010. This event caused damage in 8 homes and affected the garage areas of 15 to 20 other homes. Now in 2010, the South Texas Weather Modification Association began the cloud seeding season on April 25th, 2010. Next flash flood, May 12th, 2020. You guys can see here, this flash flood caused about 8 feet of river rising, $1 billion in damage. Cloud seeding projects were thriving across large areas of the Northwest, West, and South Texas, with 7 active projects covering 31 regions. So there were 7 active programs during that flood. Now the next flood is here, October 14th, 2021. In 2021, the cloud seeding season in South Texas began slightly later than usual on April 25th and concluded later than typical, with 2 missions ending in November. So again, more active cloud seeding. Here's the last flood, July 4th, 2025. And I do want to point out once again that STWMA started its first cloud seeding project this year on May 1st of 2025. And the last one that they reported, now they could have done it in July, they could have done July 4th, 3rd, 4th, I don't know. The last one they indicated doing was May 8th of 2025. And I'm going to read to you guys the report of how they're doing this cloud seeding. The most recent report operation involved seeding over Reeves County, where 19 glaciogenetic flares and 2 hydroscopic flares were burned within 3 clouds. This marked the first day of seeding in May and the 9th day of seeding for the season. I want to watch one video that a man made of blue rain, probably because of the chemicals that they're spraying in the clouds.
Hey, we're camping in this beautiful state park in Texas, and it's been raining, and the water that's coming out of the sky is blue. And it's not this tarp, because it's happening on this tarp too. Look at that. This is crazy.
There's no question that there's active rain enhancement programs going on. 2 counties have declared a disaster where there is active cloud seeding going on. I know we can't directly say that a plane flew and something flooded because we just don't have their schedule. But when I looked at that, to me, it was absolutely shocking, because this has been in our face for 30 years and still people are yelling about conspiracy theories. Cloud seeding, flooding, cloud seeding, flooding. And here's the interesting thing. It's not supposed to flood there. That's why they're doing cloud seeding there. They're trying to handle and help with the droughts. So Mitch, in your opinion, do you think that there is a direct correlation with these weather enhancement programs and flooding?
The problem is that it's not proven, right? The statistics just aren't there. So I want to take a side angle here. GMOs are genetically modified organisms in food. And I call it government modified organization. So just because somebody can do something, like you can modify food away from nature and turn it into something else, doesn't mean you should. Just because this problem was initially started way back in the late 1940s, when the theory of cloud seeding started to rise up through the research labs, doesn't mean you should. There's a cost-benefit analysis, and I did the research on what does it cost to seed a cloud. Well, it's not just a cloud. So the way that they have it broken down is they say, well, the cost of seeding can be up to $425 per acre foot. Well, that means 1 acre times 1 foot tall would cost $427 in theory. Now that number's been floated out there multiple times. That statement is out there multiple times. I am highly suspect of that statement, because if you go back to the late 1940s and say, look at the universities, look at the research labs, look at the flights, how many flights have occurred? They're burning fuel at a gallon a minute for these flights on average. Look at the pilots. Look at the training necessary to handle the silver iodide. When you start adding all this up, you've got to wonder, why is it that nobody really talks about the true cost-benefit analysis? Again, just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should. there's better solutions. There's 2.6 roughly billion pounds per year of food that goes from a kitchen into the dump across the United States. That's roughly 325 pounds of what would be tillable food to go into the earth. Well, if you make earth more fertile, then you make that earth more able to absorb water and absorb it fairly quickly. On a house level, people can do that in their own house. If you've got a 12,000 square foot piece of land, you've got some gardens, you can till in your tomatoes, your bananas, whatever it happens to be. And every year it gets bigger and bigger. Your earth becomes more fertile. You're able to absorb more water. In urban areas, they now have what's called a food desert, because in poor areas, they don't have the ability to generate their own food. Well, if you took an urban area and said, okay, fine, we're going to turn this land back into farmland, i.e. Detroit, where things are, huge chunks of land are now sitting urban, but there's nothing on them. If you turn that back into farmland, that land is now able to absorb. If you have a farm, in farming, they actually can now rotate not only the cattle, but they can rotate the crops. And then through the middle of the farm, they have ponds, but the ponds are linked up. They're called interlinked ponds all the way throughout the farm. Well, what happens is that's now taken a piece of land that could be fairly arid. And because of the ponds, because of the links, all that water around the pond and all the water around the links is creating the ability for the earth to start growing more green crops. These things are all things that can be done, that are all occur in nature. They are all healthy, no chemicals, no silver iodide, and it gets the job done. Its biggest problem is, unfortunately, many of those things touch real estate tax. Get rid of the tax, take things back to the way nature had designed, and every little bit helps. It's not that the seeding is bad, it's not that it's good. Problem is, nobody knows the truth.
I do believe that these weather enhancement projects have some impact on flooding. I don't see how it couldn't. Personally, when you go messing with the weather, it's just not good. I think as a result of how the lack of transparency and the lack of like, hey, we're going to do some cloud seeding. Maybe you should take these warnings seriously. Like if we're going to do a cloud seeding program, then watch out for that flood water. Something needs to be done with the communication, with the transparency. I mean, this is an absolute abomination. And so, Mitch, I really appreciate you breaking down the situation, giving us your perspective. I'm going to end us out of here by talking about how important community is, guys. The community is vital. Now, so far, it looks like there has been a positive response. There's been lots of National Guard, lots of people, dog handlers, search and rescue, but they had that same initial response during Hurricane Helene. And so I'm questioning what's going to happen in a couple of days from now. And that's why, you guys, again, I'm always preaching about community. There's no way that I'm going to sit this one out. And so again, I have Lewis, I have Melody Wright, I have a Chainsaw Master, we have dogs coming, we have our entire search and rescue team coming. And if you guys can help us participate in this operation, I have seeded their deployment with my own tithe. And guys, I don't have a lot of money. So if you can participate, if you can participate physically, reach out to Lewis. His link is going to be in this description. If you guys can contribute financially to our activities on the ground in that area, please, you guys, do it. I don't want to go broke again, but I am willing to. Now, other than that, guys, I'm going to get out of here. Absolute devastation. Say a prayer for all those families.
Hi, everyone. Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. We have a special report to do tonight talking about weather manipulation or weather modification. Just in general, weather here on this planet, the direction it's going. This is intimately linked to climate and also whether we have an impact on this. And one of the reasons I'm covering this topic today, as I've covered many times on this channel in the past, as longtime viewers would know, is because there was just a devastating flash flood in Texas. This was on July 4th. There was over 26 feet of rise in the Guadalupe River in about 45 minutes, in over a 2-hour time frame. Actually, just less than 2 hours, the Guadalupe River rose 35 feet. And so there was at 4 a.m. in the morning in hill country in Texas, from the remnants of Tropical Storm Barry, there was 10 inches of rain that happened in 1 hour. And so, of course, this is what leads to a flash flood. It's not like the Earth has never had flash floods before, but because this happened in the United States and happened on Independence Day, it's getting a lot of attention. And now there has been a new push to examine weather manipulation or weather modification and to make that a felony. So we're going to talk about that in today's video, but we're going to go beyond what you'll normally hear about, because most people point the finger at one thing or two things. They don't actually address all the things that modify our weather. So we're going to go into all the ones I know of. I can't cover all of them exhaustively in this live stream, but I will do my best to lay out a framework of understanding and basically like key information and highlights, so then you can go from there and do your own research. But we really want to get that holistic, zoomed out view, or else you're not going to be fully informed. And that's what people want you to be. They want you to be divided, and they don't want you to be fully informed, knowledgeable, aware, and on top of it, and asking questions and demanding answers. So this is a whole circus here. Don't think that I'm endorsing this or anything, but we just had Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene introduce a bill prohibiting the injection, release, dispersion of chemicals or substances into the atmosphere for the express purpose of altering weather, temperature, climate, or sunlight intensity. And she wants with this bill to make it a felony offense. She's been researching into this for a few months, and now with this, she's riding that wave. This is zero endorsement of this on either side. I'm just showing that now the political circus is interested finally in talking about weather modification. Though those of us that have been researching into this for a while will know that this has been going on for a long time. I read a book a few years ago called Earth's Aura. And this was talking about the early weather modification experiments that were occurring in the 20s, the 30s, the 50s. For example, shooting a rocket up into a storm system packed with silver iodide and seeing what happens. Also, all the nuclear testing that we did from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, all that is weather and water modification, because there's a massive release of energy, explosion, plasma. You create global effects as a result of the neutron decay from that explosion, and there's a whole bunch of geophysical effects. Well, the Earth is one large geophysical energy circuit called the global electric circuit. And so when you do those sort of things, you're modifying things quite significantly. But this storm here that hit Texas was really, really remarkable. I mean, historic, effectively. 10 inches of rain, again, in an hour at around 4 a.m. This is 4th of July weekend, so you got to think about it. You have a bunch of people going down to the Guadalupe River. It's been hot, hot, hot. They're celebrating 4th of July. They're setting up camp. There's, camps for scouts, and there's I think there's 20 girls still missing from Camp Mystic. I don't know all the details. There's so much that happened, but hundreds of people are missing from this, and very likely hundreds of lives lost as a result. But people camping along the river, and then at 4 a.m. it rising up super quickly. Also, people that are living in trailers, those just got swept away. Again, 26 feet in 45 minutes. Let's look at that sea level rise by the USGS. But before that, this is the storm system. So this is a tropical storm that came in off the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, just the Gulf, went into Texas, and then kind of stalled out and stayed in place. Look at it, it's basically just moving around hill country. We see Austin there, San Antonio there, just stayed there. And hill country has some topography to it. So it's going to take this water and basically guide it towards certain areas, low-lying areas, natural waterways, and therefore you can get this really big increase in the height of water very quickly as you have this discharge hit main riverways like the Guadalupe River. So that's some of the just understanding there. And I've been standing over the photo here of the Guadalupe River. Once it was daytime, you see just how high up it is. There were people that were climbed up in trees and were holding onto trees. Some people were even riding the river like in the tree because the trees got swept away, and they're up in the top branches hoping the thing doesn't tip over. Like there's some absolutely insane experiences that were had and stories that you can find, and also heroism, acts of heroism by a variety of people saving the lives of loved ones, family, and friends. So really on July 4th, a very, very powerful moment. So, you know, rest in peace to everyone that was lost in this incident, and prayers for everyone that was affected and injured, and hopefully everyone does well afterwards. But let's look at the USGS river data, because this is quite fascinating. This is just, again, like the most kind of notable thing that's happened as it relates to weather recently in the US. We're going to get into that weather modification, because as the weather becomes more severe, bigger, stronger, faster, we're going to see things like this more often. So it's good to understand a case study like this. Another case study would be March, April, and May of this year, when we had crazy tornadoes going across the US, one of the most active tornado seasons in a very long time. And that's also connected to the space weather that we were having, because space weather and solar activity affect our terrestrial weather and even things like earthquakes. But that's not the point of today's video. So here we have 7 days of data here for the Guadalupe River. This is near Kerrville, Texas, and this is basically normal changes to the river here, and they all just got compressed down to a solid line, basically because of this massive spike due to the flash flood. So here we have the time, and that is registering at 5 a.m. July 4th. Here is what it's saying at basically 12 a.m. right there. So an increase in the height going from 0.4 feet, let's say, up to 1.75. And then from 5 a.m., we go right there to 6:45. Now it's 34.29 feet. So that's absolutely insane. You now see how it's been discharging. It's still quite elevated, but it's at about 3.15 right now. Here's the number there. But a massive, massive push of water down the Guadalupe River because of this storm system that was hanging out in hill country, dumping a tremendous amount of water over 24 hours, not really moving. And so a lot of people are looking at this, wondering, okay, was this the result of weather modification? And so the next thing we'll go into is that we already have the government talking about weather modification. It's not like this is some secret covert thing. It very well could be that there could be large-scale covert weather modification experiments going on. There's so much conflicting information out there on weather modification that it's kind of difficult to get a sense of what is truly happening. And because it's like it's all over the place. It's in the conspiracy land, and so it's really hard to filter out the truth from all the false and fake conspiracy theories, which makes it difficult. And so I'm not saying none of these conspiracy theories are actually the truth, but I'm saying that we don't even need to go there to see that there is weather and climate modification occurring. And NOAA has a page, the Weather Modification Project Report page, where you're supposed to disclose any weather modification projects that you're doing. And so you can scroll down here. NOAA collects this information, activities subject to reporting. You can read it right here. I'll link this in the video description after the live stream's over. But just for example, seeding or dispersing of any substance into clouds or fogs to alter drop size distribution, produce ice crystals, coagulation of droplets, alter the development of hail or lightning, or influence in any way the natural development cycle of clouds or their environment. Then there's like using fires or heat sources to influence convective circulation or to evaporate fog, modifying solar radiation exchange of the Earth or the clouds through the release of gases, dust, liquids, or aerosols into the atmosphere. But there's a whole bunch of things, and some of them aren't like that significant, but they are technically weather modification. But like, for example, using aircraft propeller, downwash, jet wash, or other sources of artificial wind generation, like that's probably not something that covert secret groups are doing, but it is technically weather modification. Look, read number 8 right here, using lasers or other sources of electromagnetic radiation. So that's something that also has been done. That's, you know, all these things exist. The technology is there. Again, we've been doing this since the 20s and the 30s in a very conscious way. We've been modifying the weather through human activity basically since the beginning. We're going to talk about that because that's a very important component of weather modification. But in terms of very intentionally trying to steer and change natural weather systems, that's been going on since the 20s and 30s with the initial experiments, and then really ramped up in the 60s and 70s. And we're in 2025 right now. So you can go all the way down, and they have these reports here. And so I'm just going to set it to show 100 entries. And they're from all across the US, and you can click on them. Here's one from the California area, and it discusses what they're doing. So this one specifically, I would have to actually read through this one. A lot of them are talking about silver iodine flares. So they're releasing silver iodine into these cloud systems in an attempt to modify them. And if I click, I mean, just some of these ones at the beginning here were like that. So let's just click this one and see what it says. But here's anti-hail devices that will be activated when a potential hailstorm is approaching. And within this cone, hail is broken by captivation. Hail growth is suppressed by ionization. So there's a whole bunch of small scale experiments too. Like they're really small in scale, but technically they're weather modification, so they have to release a port. But there are some of these experiments which are larger. You can look through them and be like, we launched flares into a storm that had silver iodide to cause these sort of changes. So for people that are really, look at this though, 1,098 entries. So you're going to have to go take some time to go through this to get a sense of the scale, the normal scale and scope of these weather modification experiments. But they are quite intense. Nice. But let us go into just in general the truth of weather modification, because it's not just like some secret covert group. It's happening right now. It's been happening for decades of years, and each and every single one of us is a part of it. So before that, though, I do want to show you this photo here. I showed it on the last live stream, and this is a gigantic jet. Basically a massive plasma discharge from a thunderstorm, and this was actually right near Mexico and Texas on July 3rd. And so this was almost certainly from that tropical storm, Barry, the remnants of it, and we see this massive discharge of plasma going up to the ionosphere. And so this very nicely shows a connection between these sort of weather systems and this tropospheric activity, the accumulation of charge here, and how that can actually cause a massive plasma discharge. This was less than a second. So this is the best photo you ever had of a gigantic jet captured from the International Space Station from astronaut Nicole Ayers, early morning for Texas on the 3rd. And this is just showing that larger flow of energy across the globe. So if we're talking about weather modification, that's really what we need to be discussing. So let us talk about our global electric circuit so we get a better sense of just what the heck is actually happening. This is a very simplified graphic here and model here, okay? So this is very simple, and you can already see it looks quite complex. So keep that in mind. Our understanding of these systems is quite limited compared to the reality of the situation, and therefore, that's why I think these weather modification experiments are really stupid, because we don't really exactly know how we're perturbing the system and what the end result is going to be. I think it's incredibly dumb. Everyone has their own opinion, but as a geophysicist who respects nature and thinks that just letting nature do her thing is probably the best policy, anything that disturbs this, I think is going to have a lot of unintended consequences and effectively be like opening up Pandora's box. And we're already doing it. But we see here our ionosphere. This is the uppermost part of the atmosphere, about 50 kilometers up on the daytime side of the Earth, more like 100 kilometers up, and then above that on the nighttime side, it decharges at night. It's about 1% plasma. And plasma is that fourth state of matter where you have electrons actually being stripped off of a molecule, or, for example, even just like a hydrogen ion, or just a hydrogen, right? So you have the hydrogen, the electron, the proton, then you create this hydrogen ion and electron, things like that. So now you have these charge carriers. They can flow, they can create electric currents. And during something like a space weather impact, which we're actually under right now, we're having the solar wind be fairly strong and giving us elevated geomagnetic activity. The ionosphere gets more charge from outer space. There's more plasma, stronger electric currents. That drives a stronger global electric circuit. And there's connections between space weather and tropospheric weather, or like weather down here that we experience. And there's certain types of space weather that really lead to these enhancements of terrestrial weather, specifically coronal hole high-speed stream impacts, which is actually what we have coming up effectively right now. But that is not outside the scope of this video, but not the main purpose of today's video. So here we have a thunderstorm. We see the charge differential in the thunderstorm. We see that it causes precipitation, lightning discharges, sometimes point discharge currents. You can have intercloud lightning strikes. You also can have these transient luminous like events going up, or like, for example, that gigantic jet or sprites, a whole bunch of these plasma phenomenon can launch from the top of a thunderstorm up to the ionosphere. Most of the resistance in between the ground surface and the ionosphere is in the boundary layer, the top 2 kilometers, or let's just say like 1.6 miles, something like that, okay? 2 miles is where most of the resistance is. And then once you get above that, or especially like once you're like 5-10 kilometers up, the conductivity actually increases quite a bit, because the air in between the ionosphere and the surface is very resistive. It does not allow a flow of electric charge, but the surface is quite conductive. It has a conductivity of about 10 to negative Siemens, S-E-I-M-E-N-S. That's the unit. And then also the ionosphere is also about 10 to negative Siemens. But the atmosphere in between is 10 to the 14, like 10 to negative 14. So 7 orders of magnitude difference. And metal is very conductive. That's going to be important when we're going to talk about metal in the atmosphere, specifically like the stratosphere, how that could be affecting things. But what researchers that look into the global electric circuit have effectively identified is that the research indicates and the data indicates that the most important driver and aspect of the global electric circuit is the conductivity of the atmosphere. So when the conductivity changes, the global electric circuit changes. What is a circuit? It's a flow of energy. And you don't have a circuit unless you have a flow of energy through all parts. And so the rate of the current in that circuit will be determined by the most resistive part. And so if this all of a sudden becomes more conductive, there's going to be a lot more energy flow through that circuit. And well, a thundercloud here, for example, can be 50, 100 megavolts. The ionosphere, for reference, is 250,000 volts. So, or 250 kV. This can be 100 MV. Huge difference. And then the atmosphere itself generally is neutral. And same with the ground surface. It's basically neutral in its charge. So that builds this charge differential. Because you have a voltage differential, that forms that fair weather current. During fair weather conditions where you don't have any of this stuff, you have a simple current going like this and linking the two together, slowly equalizing them together. But you have all these things occurring, sunlight hitting the ionosphere, space weather effects that in general keep that charge of the ionosphere stable. It's an equipotential, typically about 250 kV. During a space weather impact, it can be 350, 400 or greater, especially in the polar cusp region in the high latitude zones near the North Pole, South Pole. And then the surface stays in general negative or neutrally charged. But when you put this cloud, which has a massive electromagnetic potential to it, move it through this very resistive soup of the atmosphere, it creates really strong electric currents. That's why you get these transient events going up, like, for example, that gigantic jet that can then link the two instantly together. That creates a very strong electric conductivity profile. basically electric current in between the two, and these are all electrified. So when you start altering the larger global electric circuit of the planet and increase that current flow, these things are going to get stronger. That's the bigger perspective that we need to start with right from the get-go. Is A, what's happening to the global electric circuit on this planet? Is it getting stronger? Is it getting weaker? Is it not changing? And if it is changing, and hint, hint, it's getting stronger, what is making it stronger? Why is Earth undergoing this electrification process? I call this Earth electrification. It's basically the process that we're in right now at this moment in time. But there's a whole bunch of other things you see that affect the global electric circuit. You have these very high, like stratiform clouds. You have natural radioactivity creating ions. You have galactic cosmic rays coming in, creating ions. Even corona discharges from like high power transmission lines, and you have point discharge currents, and just a whole bunch of stuff. Solar energetic particles, relativistic electrons. It's a very, very active system, and there's a lot more we need to learn about it, okay? So that is the global electric circuit. If we're going to talk about weather modification, we need to talk about the global electric circuit first and foremost. That's probably the first thing that you'll realize no one is telling you if they're talking about weather modification other than a very few people. And next, let's talk about our larger environment as it relates to solar activity. Here we have, because the sun is the big driver of climate. If we turn the sun off, we have a master switch for God, we turn it off. Well, I've said this so many times, but it bears repeating. The earth becomes cold, dark, and lifeless. So the sun is the main driver of everything. Everything else is modifying that solar energy input. Now, going from solar minimum to maximum, we see here that data. This is total solar irradiance. You basically calculate all the energy from the light spectrum of the sun and measure it as watts per meter squared hitting the earth. That only varies from about 1361 to 1364 from minimum here to maximum there. That's a 12-year cycle, okay? And then there's variations to those cycles like grand solar minimums and then grand solar maximums, okay? Here's a Maunder minimum, the Sporer minimum, Wolf minimum, Oort minimum. We have the Dalton minimum at the beginning of the 18th century. We can actually see that one right there. A very weak grand solar minimum, but still classified by many people as one. But we see the Maunder minimum there. Our total solar irradiance flatlined, our sunspots flatlined, though it still is at this base load value, right? The changes to that TSI is mostly in the extreme ultraviolet and the X-ray part of the light spectrum, as well as the radio frequency part of the light spectrum. The visible light, the infrared light, and the ultraviolet light typically doesn't change that much. It has the lowest variability going from solar min to solar max. But look at what happened after the Maunder minimum. This is, again, our constructed total solar irradiance, but we could also look at this data with sunspots, and it'll show the same effect. We have been having 300 years of increasing light energy. So we see these cycles going like this. We do have that Dalton minimum there, but in general, it's been going up, 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 up. This is the 1900s, like the 20th century right there. And then this is what we project, at least some scientists are projecting for the future as it relates to solar activity. They're expecting solar activity to get even more wild for the rest of the 21st century. So if that is the case, that is going to bring even more energy into the Earth energy system. And therefore, if there is any modification occurring on our planet, which there is, it's going to just amplify any of those effects and make everything more volatile. So that's the thing we also need to keep in mind. By perturbing this system, we're making it more volatile. Bigger floods when they happen, bigger droughts when they happen. Longer droughts, longer periods of intense rainfall. Just everything's just going to be more volatile. That seems to be what occurs when the Earth undergoes an electrification process. That's what we're seeing right now on this planet. Next, let us talk about one of the main things that's causing the weather to change on this planet. And again, you are going to have to turn off, if you have this in your brain, hopefully you don't, but if you do, you're going to have to turn off that political programming that you may have in your brain, because we're just simply talking geology and geophysics here. This isn't talking about anything other than that. So we have hydrocarbon combustion, and basically hydrocarbons are these molecules that have carbon and hydrogen in various ratios. For example, methane is CH4, so it's 1 carbon atom for every 4 hydrogen atoms. And you have a hydrocarbon, if you give it a little bit of energy in the presence of oxygen, it undergoes an exothermic reaction and produces carbon dioxide, water, heat, and light. Now, these hydrocarbons, there's a whole bunch of them, of course. You know, there's like natural gas, there's oil, there's coal. That's not exactly, you know, it's similar, but methane, all these different hydrocarbons, they are basically, right, they are inert and stable forms of sunlight that was sequestered over millions of years. So you have the Earth living its life, spinning around for millions of years, and there are, you know, plants dying, being birthing, dying, just constantly in this cycle of life and death. And a lot of those plants, they fall down, they go into like swampy conditions, it's anaerobic, no oxygen, and they actually then eventually get sequestered and turn into hydrocarbon via the geologic process. So we have been taking millions of years of stored solar energy, which again, as I just laid out, is the main driver of the heat balance and climate on our planet. We've taken millions of years of that and lit it up in just 200 years. If you, let's say, go back to 1850. So in less than 200 years, we've released a ton of sequestered sunlight energy on our planet. So these hydrocarbons, when given enough energy to break their chemical bonds in the presence of oxygen, they undergo an exothermic reaction, meaning that they actually then produce their own energy to keep it self-sustaining. Endothermic means that like it takes energy and reaches a higher energy potential state. These reach a lower energy potential state, and that state includes carbon dioxide, water, heat, and light. Now, you'll get more water from a hydrocarbon combustion reaction than carbon dioxide. So I think it's for methane, again, CH4. I think you get 1 CO2 and 2 H2Os. Yeah, because you have a single carbon there, and you'll have 2 hydrogen or 2 water molecules that will give you 4 hydrogen atoms. So methane reaction, for example, again, CH4 plus unlimited oxygen, we'll say, will give you 1 carbon dioxide, 2 water molecules. Water is the main greenhouse gas. It's a more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. So we've been putting more water into the Earth system than there was before. We're also in an interglacial period, so the Earth naturally is hotter right now, and we've been having this 300 years of increasing light energy from the sun. And every degree C that you go up in temperature on the planet, you hold 7% more water in the atmosphere. So not only have we released a ton of greenhouse gases, water being the main greenhouse gas, but also, for example, carbon dioxide having some effects, though it's by far not the main thing driving climate change. It's just one small component of a much larger complex system. All that has contributed to what's happening on our planet geophysically. And let us not forget that you're just also creating a bunch of heat and releasing a bunch of light. Light is pure energy. Heat is energy. And so we've just been having a bunch of heat production on our planet due to hydrocarbon combustion. So this is every single power plant, effectively, every single car engine, any generator, anything like that that's using hydrocarbons is releasing heat energy that has to be radiated away from the planet for it to cool down. This is long wave infrared radiation. There is a heat imbalance right now with our planet where we're holding more of this long wave IR than we're releasing. One reason why the temperature on this planet is going up. And then you have things like how now we're having more water in the atmosphere, other gas concentrations are changing, CO2 is going up, ozone's going down. There's a whole bunch of these things I could go into. But just from the simple physics, we're burning a lot of hydrocarbons, creating a lot of heat, and not all that is radiating away. So it's not about cow farts or human burps or any of these stupid things that political people bring up to say that climate change is a myth or something. We are undeniably having an effect on our planet by doing this. And it's just what it is. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying we've been changing the climate on our planet as a result of this, releasing more heat into the environment. Also, because we've been having more heat and more water, the atmosphere can hold more water. That's kind of like one of the base things occurring right now leading to all this. Because when you have more water in the atmosphere, it can then absorb more energy. So what's another thing that's been happening? We have to talk about the electric susceptibility of water, okay? Because water has some very special properties as it relates to electromagnetic radiation. I've talked about this before. I'm going to keep talking about this on the channel. It's very important that people get educated on this. Here we see the dielectric constant of water going from 0.1 gigahertz up to 100 gigahertz, okay? So this is part of the light spectrum. This is actually the microwave part of light spectrum. So once you're in this zone there, that's actually the type of energy that your microwave oven, if you use one, is beaming your food with to heat it up. How does that work? The water molecules in your food actually absorb some portion of that energy, and some of that energy that they absorb goes into causing the water molecules to vibrate like this, which generates heat, which warms your food up. But there's a lot of other non-thermal effects as well. But we see that at about 1 gigahertz here, the electric susceptibility of water is the same as it is for all the frequencies lower than 1 gigahertz in general, okay? So for water right at 0 degrees Celsius, we see it's near 90. And then as the water temperature goes up, that electric susceptibility goes down. It does absorb more energy easily from these sort of electromagnetic waves at higher temperatures. But in general, it's all kind of in this band there. It's not easily absorbing these electromagnetic waves. Then once you get past 1 gigahertz, and you start, especially like at 10 gigahertz and beyond, look at how the electric susceptibility of water changes. Now all of a sudden, it's absorbing this energy rapidly. That's why your microwave oven works, because it's using these sort of frequencies. Well, guess what? We use these microwave radio frequencies not just in our microwave ovens anymore. We also use them with cellular networks and also with weather monitoring stations. There's a little bit of a quantum observer effect I'll talk about. But every single cell tower now that's emitting 5G is in this frequency band right there, which is absorbed by water to a much greater degree than before. And that is one reason why they need so many of these cell towers out there. It's simply a completely different equation. Here we have an example of 4G versus 5G. So we see that there's much higher frequency. They have to be interspersed more often because not only does a higher frequency wave attenuate out faster, it's getting absorbed into water much easier. And so we're literally radiating everything around us. It's not just the atmosphere, which is carrying water. It's also our bodies, plants, all life on this planet is getting blasted by these radio frequency energies, especially in urban areas. But you know, they're doing their best to cover 5G across the entire planet. And so how do you think this is fueled, right? They're taking energy from the local power plant and converting it into electromagnetic radiation. So at the same time, we're burning a lot of hydrocarbons in general. You know, there is green energy production. We have solar, we have wind, we have nuclear, but in general, it's fairly low. It's like 20% for the United States, maybe like 30%. France is a lot higher with their nuclear. Bhutan is 100% hydroelectric. But in general, most countries are burning coal, natural gas, and oil. So we're taking that, doing these exothermic reactions, and then we're taking the energy that we do get and blasting it into the atmosphere via, for example, 5G. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And we need a ton of these towers because it doesn't travel that well, so it's getting absorbed into the water and more. That's a big thing that no one talks about with weather modification, because now you just have so much more energy in the atmosphere already. And you're changing the atmospheric conductivity and therefore altering that global electric circuit. So we're talking about weather modification. It's not just jets flying in the atmosphere and maybe injecting particles and, you know, stratospheric aerosol injection. We're going to talk about that. It's not just that, though. That is just like one little thing. This is the real meat and potatoes of weather modification, and there is more. So let us also talk about how we actually track weather systems across time. Here's a graphic just basically showing the energy of these microwave beams that come off of these NextRad towers. So we have all these towers across the United States, also across like Europe and other places to track big weather systems. For example, not this one. Like, how do we get this graphic there, right? Well, we're using these weather radar towers to reflect off of these systems so we can image them and model them. And from a standpoint of tracking a storm and knowing where it's going and giving people a heads up, this technology is very, very useful. Now, we also do have, various cuts happening to the different weather tracking agencies in the United States. So we're getting less and less information out to the public as a result of that. But in general, these are helpful for tracking weather systems and hopefully giving people a heads up as to things like this thunderstorm cell hanging out over hill country, then causing an insanely devastating flash flood. But look at the frequency. 2.7 to 3 gigahertz. It's right in that electric susceptibility range. It's starting to, at least. And so a lot of this energy will go out and just radiate out to space, but some of it does hit cloud systems, and certain cloud systems will create what's known as an inversion and cause this energy to bounce back like this. And so you're microwaving the entire lower atmosphere when you do that with very high energy microwave beams in that range, that frequency range that's absorbed by water. Look at the power on this. It's 650 to 750 kilowatts. So these are very, very powerful installations. They're all across the US. And anyone that's studied into quantum physics, just in general, knows that if you observe something, you affect it. There's an observer effect. So the only way to not affect a system is effectively not to observe it. And so by having these systems here observing our weather, we are fundamentally also altering the weather that we are observing. And because this energy here gets absorbed so well in the water, and what is a thunderstorm other than ice crystals and water droplets, it is just going to cause them to get stronger and stronger and stronger. Now, some people are talking about, okay, they're steering these weather systems using these NextRad towers. I don't know about that. This is just like energy going out like this. I'm not sure that's possible, but certainly as it relates to this energy overall enhancing the strength of weather systems over time, just continuously adding energy into the system, that is undoubtedly the case. How significant is the effect? That is up for debate and for further research, but just based on fairly simple physics, it is undeniable that we are adding more energy into our atmospheric systems and therefore into our weather than we would have if we did not have these installations. So that is also weather modification. So that's why I'm saying, the truth of weather modification is not just what these conspiracy theories are. There's a lot to it. And let's go into another new factor that is affecting things that most people are unaware of. And that is the fact that we have a bunch of satellites in space now, creating significant geophysical disturbances. Here we have a map of Starlink satellites, which make up the majority of satellites in space. There's less than 15,000 satellites in space from all the different countries. But Starlink from SpaceX has done a fantastic job at putting up thousands of satellites. The total now that they've launched overall is more than 9,000, as we can see with this graph here. And there are currently about 6,700 in service, 1,200 are inactive, and about 1,141 have burned up. And that is what I want us to focus on. But before I cancel out the total line, remember that every single satellite that is in space eventually will burn up into the atmosphere. None of them are permanent. So every single one of these eventually will burn up. Question is when? Now, if we turn off this total line, check out what happens. The rate of these Starlink satellites burning up has gone up exponentially. Specifically, in 2025. So we were down here back at the middle of 2020, 0, okay? Because they just started launching these with the rollout of 5G in mind. So 5G rolled out in 2019, roughly, but it really took on in 2021, 2022. So this is like new to all of us, effectively. This is not like 20-year thing. You know, there have been other effects going further back, but really that exponential change is going from 2020 to now, okay? But then we see, you know, fairly, I guess, almost linear growth going all the way up to about the middle of 2024. Then we get a big increase right there going to December. And right in the middle of December 2024, we've basically doubled the amount of satellites that have burned up. And these satellites weigh, they're quite heavy. I think it's like 250 kilograms minimum for the first generation. The new ones are heavier. They're composed of mostly metal, and they go down, they'll blate into the atmosphere and effectively just distribute a bunch of metallic dust across the entire globe because they're always coming down in different locations. Now, this has a lot of geophysical effects. This ablation of satellites has been shown to degrade ozone, and also if you have a metallic satellite coming down, it's going to create these conductive metallic particles. So, for example, aluminum will get, some of the aluminum will get ionized and become Al3+. And now you have this heavy metallic conductive ion, which can start to alter that conductivity profile of the atmosphere and the global electric circuit and drive stronger systems. It can also create stronger geomagnetic storms, which have an enhancing effect on tropospheric weather, especially where there are zones of already enhanced charge differential, like with a thunderstorm, a cyclone, tornado cell, something like that. So this is another thing that is modifying our weather. How, like, to what degree, how significant, that is up for further research and debate, but it is undeniable that this is also modifying our weather. And these metallic oxides are one of the main things that are known to reflect sunlight as well. So that is where stratospheric aerosol injection comes in, because there's a lot of research proposals out there, and perhaps already some covert operations that, you know, I don't know if that's the case or not. I just know that there's people have looked into it. I haven't found a good consensus on that. But there seems to be something funny happening as it relates to that, but I can't give you a definitive statement. That'd be irresponsible of me to do so, and actually of anyone to do so. You just have to do your own research and wade through the muck of conspiracy theories, basically. It's just what it is. But one of the main things that they want to use for the stratospheric aerosol injection are metallic oxides. Well, we're already getting these metallic oxides to rain down into our planet as a result of all these satellites. And they want to have, like, not just 9,000 satellites, they want to have like 40,000 for Starlink or more. And then China wants a mega constellation or 5. And then there's also other mega constellations being planned in the United States and in Europe. And so soon, if they get their way, there are going to be hundreds of thousands of satellites, and you're going to have probably 100+ satellites burning up every single day. It's already getting close to like 5 satellites a day are burning up as a result of Starlink. I mean, again, if we go here, we can get that exact number, or as close to exact as we can get. Here we have June 30th, 1138, and then 1132 on June 26th. So it's like 2 to 3, and sometimes it's more per day. It's really very quite significant. Let us talk about stratospheric aerosol injection, because that is a significant thing that people have been testing. It's not like it's never happened before on our planet, but how widespread is that? That's a completely different story. I don't have the answer, again, as I've said. But the idea is that if you take reflective aerosols and you inject them up to the stratosphere, which is you have the troposphere and then you have the stratosphere. So it's the part of the atmosphere above where planes fly, especially like 35,000 feet up or so and higher. Eventually you go to different parts of the atmosphere, but the stratosphere is where planes fly. And it doesn't have the same convection as the troposphere, the lower atmosphere. And so if you inject aerosols up there, the idea is that they'll stay up there for a while and reflect sunlight. And the idea really came about by noticing what happens when a volcano explodes and launches a bunch of aerosols up into the stratosphere, because a really powerful volcanic eruption will have its ash plume actually reach the stratosphere. It has a lot of sulfur compounds. Those are like sulfur dioxide is reflective. It reflects sunlight away and you get a global cooling effect. And so you can have these aerosols be either like fine grained solid particles or even like liquid droplets. And the main things that are being used and or are being researched to be used is sulfur compounds or metal oxides. And what the weather modification experiments that they're often doing now, like as reported by that weather modification project page, which is available to anyone to see. Again, this guy right here, just scrolling through these, a lot of them are of like silver iodide. But the stratospheric aerosol injection, how widespread is that? Is it global? Is it not? Is it small scale testing? They do it in Dubai. They're already doing it in the Gulf states to help bring in more rain because it's so dry, dusty, and hot there. So like there's undoubtedly already government-led programs using that technology at play, active on the planet. But as it relates to, is every single passenger jet in the plane spraying these things for a covert operation? That's, again, you're just going to have to do your own research. I don't think that's the case. You know, passenger jets, no, I don't think that's the case. But there's just so much conflicting information out there. Some people are saying these aerosols, like the liquid metal particles, like these tiny little metal particles are being put into jet fuel itself. So you don't need to hide the tanks or anything. It's all discrete because it's in the jet fuel itself. Other people are saying that it's specific planes that are flying continuously that do it, and jet planes are not at all part of the equation. There's just so much conflicting information out there again. So I'm sorry that I have been unable to get a better read on the situation. And I'm a good researcher and I wade through the junk really quite easily. And it's just so much junk with the weather modification stuff. So I've been talking about this before, but it's one reason why I haven't gone super, super in depth, because it's just really difficult to find out what the truth is. But we do know the truth of how our radio frequency technology is altering the overall energy budget in heat and conductivity of the atmosphere. And we know how use of hydrocarbons affects that, and the Starlink effect now, all these things. So this information is out there. There are other things too. For example, you do have these auroral ionospheric heaters, which can eject energy up to the ionosphere and create these magnetic ducts that allow particles to rain down. That's called HAARP. Well, at least there's one of the installations is called HAARP, H-A-A-R-P. That's another one of these things that a lot of people talk about. They often don't know really what they're talking about, but they still do. But there are other ionospheric heater programs out there that affects the geophysics of the planet. So there's a whole bunch of things which fundamentally, at the end of the day, modify our weather and are a deviation away from the natural system. If we weren't doing these things, like let's say we went back 2,000 years ago, okay? The main way we would be modifying the weather 2,000 years ago is with the fires that we were burning and the soot that was going up, and that'd be a fairly minor effect. Same with like during the Neolithic period, or even going up to pre-industrial revolution, our effect on weather and the climate was effectively zero. But now, because of all these factors, we are becoming a more important modifying factor on our weather and climate, of which the sun is the main driver of activity. So that is the science there. That is the report for you. Really unfortunate situation in Texas with this flash flooding. There have been massive floods also in China. We've been seeing huge floods in like Paris and Spain recently. All across the world, we're seeing this big kind of volatility in terms of massive deluges of water. Then other times you get big droughts. But in general, we're seeing a lot of activity like this. Just Earth electrification is going to affect more than just our weather. That's the thing. As the Earth becomes more of a storm world, like Jupiter, if we really zoom out to like the planetary solar system scale, the Earth is becoming a storm world similar to Jupiter. Our storms are getting stronger. The global electric circuit's getting stronger. These super bolts are becoming more frequent and deadly. All these things are pushing us towards a more stormy planet, and the result is going to be things like this that occur, which is it's just what it is. It's highly, prayers for everyone affected in Texas, but this isn't going to stop tomorrow or today. Like there's going to be there's a lot of inertia to this. So unless some big volcanic eruption goes off and gives the Earth a big dose of cooling, or we have some crazy third outside influence that come in to change the planet, perhaps in some significant way, there's a lot of inertia with this, with our climate systems, you could say. I'll keep at it, and to give you my best understanding, perspective as to what is happening. I am a single human being, so I am not perfect. Please make sure you seek out other perspectives and also do your own research. But I do my best to make this as comprehensive and holistic as possible by being interdisciplinary and really researching pretty deeply into these different fields and finding those cross connections, which is why I'm able to see sort of this bigger picture, and it's not that much of a headache to do so. Whereas a lot of other people, you just move one field of science over from them and they know nothing, and they just completely say, oh, that's not true or whatever. So we do everything possible here as a community to research and everything with an open mind. If you like the sound of that, then please subscribe. Again, I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Please take care of yourself.
Anyone who's known me for a while knows that I am and have been absolutely nuts. My wife will tell you regarding what people call chemtrails. It's not chemtrails. Don't ever call them chemtrails. Don't say it. Don't. That has been designated by those in charge as being a conspiracy theory. If you go and look up chemtrails right now, just look it up. Go to Wikipedia, the official narrative writer of the left. You know who that is? I'll take it later. I wish I could grab that for me real quick. Maybe that's not it. Okay, hang on one second. This is important, my friends. Hang on a second. Good day, sir. That is quite all right. I'm doing my live broadcast right now. Are we okay for the time I had suggested? Wonderful. I will talk to you about it tomorrow. We are all set, and I will announce it accordingly as I speak. And you saw, and you saw what Marjorie Taylor Greene did today, right? Alex had covered it. She is. Oh, wonderful. Well, we're going to be doing it tomorrow, my friend. Excellent. Talk to you then. I'll talk to you in the morning. Thank you, sir. That was the one and only Dane Wigington. I'm going to be having him on tomorrow Monday morning, 1 o'clock, 1 to 5 on my Eastern time on the WABC show. He is the preeminent person on this. He is it. Nobody can come close to him. What he has done, what he has endured, what he has discussed, nobody, and I mean nobody, can hold a candle to him. He is just absolutely, it's just incredible what he has done. And what he's also done is he has provided such incredible scientific. But by the way, we'll talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene. He's got more information on that. Finally, it's making its ways. Trump is talking about it. Bobby Kennedy, I don't know what Bobby Kennedy is waiting for. I don't understand it. There's something obviously going on more than I know or I'm privy to, because he has been exceedingly cautious to the point of I don't know why he's been so cautious. But in any event, it doesn't matter. I'm glad that he's at least talking about it. Thank God. Because what we're seeing right now is a resurgence, or rather an injection and an infusion of interest in this. Before I begin, let me make sure I get this out of the way, because this is critical. We're going to be talking about this and others. We're going to be doing a kind of a pro on anti-Zoran Mamdani rally 2 weeks from today at the Cutting Room. It's going to be to call it I don't want to call it stand up. You have no idea. I don't like that. It's demeaning to call it that. It's beyond that. What I do, I think, is far more important. In any event, we're going to be talking about that. So please, tickets are available 2 weeks from today, Cutting Room, New York City. Enjoy the fun. Meet fellow travelers, fellow observers, fellow members of the conspiratorium, those of us who have been with this since day one. You'll meet some of the best people ever. It's like you think of this almost like reverse AA. I don't know what the word is. You're going to meet fellow people addicted to the truth who want to remain addicted to the truth. Does that make sense? I'm not trying in any way to mock this. I'm not kidding around about this. This is the most important. This is just absolutely critical that we discuss this. So anyway, please, tickets are available. You've got the link right there. 2 weeks from today. I can't wait to see you. Please bring cameras. Let's enjoy the nightlife, so to speak. And anyway, I'm so happy about this. I have been saying for the longest time, and maybe you can help me. I've been saying this for the longest time, that if there's one subject that I wish I could see exposed before I, move on, as they say, it's going to be geoengineering. And geoengineering, of course, we never call it chemtrails. Never. It is designed. They are ready to jump on you if you call it chemtrails. If you then review geoengineering, it's a different story altogether. It's completely different. It's 100% different. And the reason why it's different, the reason why it's critical, is that it's a different concept. I'll give you an idea of what Dane and I have been talking about. He lives in California, and for a long time he wanted to, I guess, have a kind of live sort of off the grid, so to speak. And he had everything set up, and his solar collection panels and everything that a good citizen wanted to do. He just wanted to, do the right thing. Okay. Make a long story short, for reasons that nobody really knows, he decided, or he was wondering, why is this not catching on? Why is my solar paneling not working? What is going on here? What is happening? How is this not working? Blah, 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 blah. And what happened was, he found out that he went out and he started to look at the amount of actual sunlight that was being collected, and it was reduced to virtually nothing. He said, how can that be? I see the sun. I'm almost on top of a mountain. How is this even possible? How is this remotely possible? How does this? Okay. Make a long story short, he did some testing and found out that other people noticed as well that there is a dimming There is a dimming. There is an actual, legitimate, actual, true dimming. The sun is not getting here. Something is preventing the sun from getting here. What is it? That led him on. They found out also later that when people were investigating ground analyses and the like, looking at the soil, there was a higher concentration of aluminum and barium and strontium and all of these things. So what is happening? He went around. Then all you had to do was this. You ready? You had to do this. That's it. You just had to look up. And for the longest time, we saw something which to me is an example of something I will never forget as long as I live. And that is how people look the other way when they actually saw people, when they saw spraying. They saw spraying and they said, no, that's condensation. That's something else. That's not, I don't know what that is, but that's not spraying. Can't be spraying. It's not spraying. Nobody's spraying anything. It's like, what are you talking about? They're spraying it. They're spraying something. I don't know what it is. No, it's not spraying. It's not spraying. It's water vapor. It's you see them all the time. Those B-52 pictures and photos. You've seen that. No, this isn't condensation. Yes, we know what contrails are. We know what contrails are. We know what condensation trails are. These are not condensation trails. Do you hear what I am saying? Kelly McKinnon, thank you, dear heart. Thank you for this. I'm trying not, I can't be any more serious than this. This is personal. And I'll tell you why in a moment. Because they called me crazy. I said, this is not condensation trails. Water vapor does not spread across huge swaths of earth real estate, covering landmass, filtering the sun with gauzy, cheeseclothy, hazy, diaphanous sprays and streaks. It dissipates. It doesn't last. If you go outside during a cold spell, if it's freezing and you go outside and you blow, whatever smoke, you cigarette, it doesn't spread out and cover your neighborhood. It doesn't, it's contrary to common sense. We went through that with masks. When people were saying, how am I smelling things? This mask cannot stop a virus. Oh, there you go again. You're an anti-vaxxer, a conspiracy theorist, and you're saying this has nothing to do with vaccines. This is about mask physics. We've been through this. We've seen buildings fall at free fall speed, defying every known law of physics, rational thought, name it. We've seen this. We have seen this to the point where we said, no, you don't understand. You see jet fuel, and we've been through over and over and over. But this is the one where I'm saying, no. All you have to do is look up. When we look out the window and we look down, I guess, south, so to speak. It's not really south because Manhattan, as you know, juts out. So what we think is south is really east. Anyway, when we look up and we see Jersey at night, sunset, when the sun goes down in that sleepy little town right around San Antonio, and the sky gets orangey, you can see streak after streak after streak up like octothorpes, like hashtags. This is not condensation. This is not water vapor. This is not that. This is something else. They have pictures of jets with spray and then stopping and then turning back on again. Sprays. Is it in the jet fuel? We don't know. Is it mixed? We don't know. Who's doing this? Where are these? What's happening? Why can't we? Do these planes have transponders? Have we ever just found a plane, found it, followed it, send a jet air after it, and say, okay, stop, you, pull over, so to speak. What are you spraying? Who are you? Are they doing it at night? Do you remember? Maybe you don't, but I do. Anybody in New York remembers on September the 11th, what everybody says is it was one of the most beautiful days ever. Crystal blue persuasion. No, crystal blue skies. I mean, blue as blue, not a cloud in the sky, but it was beautiful. You don't see that anymore. You've seen it. You have, with me, been mesmerized. When is somebody going to acknowledge this? Just acknowledge it. Acknowledge it. We've known about cloud seeding. We've known about Operation Popeye. We've known about Operation Storm Fury. We've known about, since the beginning of mankind, man has been trying to manipulate weather. If I can manipulate weather, I control everything. Forget warfare. Forget anything you've ever seen before. What is happening in the whole country, this tragedy, these poor girls kill, little girl, 23 kids, girls. The numbers, please don't hold me to it. At a Christian camp, innocent. Now, I don't know. I am not saying right now whether this is manufactured weather. Some of you will do when I tell you, please don't do this, because this is why people think we're crazy, because we have no information. No, that's it. It's HARP. We'll throw HARP in there. We don't know. Could be. I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't know. I don't know. So for the first time in a long time, and I'm telling you, Dane Wigington, I've known him now for forever. We've talked about it. And I mean, people thought I was crazy. Anthony Cumia, my dear buddy, pal, now WABC mate. When I was on his show, I don't know, years ago, I brought this up and he said, well, I don't know about this. I said, I know. You're thinking contrails. And he showed me a picture of a B-2719, whatever the hell these were. And you saw these. I said, yes, Anthony. Yes. But they don't cover Europe. They dissipate. Yes, when the hot air meets cold temperatures. But today, based upon the current state of the art of engine design, the exhaust is cooled. You don't get these. It's not what you think. Might have been years ago. They're spraying something. Now, go to geoengineering. Let me go right now. You're not going to do this. I understand this. Let me go to geoengineering. This is geoengineering under Google. Geoengineering. First of all, what does it say? Geoengineering, also known as climate engineering or climate intervention, refers to large-scale interventions designed to counteract the effects of climate change. It primarily focuses on either carbon dioxide removal or solar radiation management. Solar radiation management is really the one. That's one. Stratospheric aerosol injection, SAI, marine cloud brightening, space mirrors, surface albedo modification. It goes on and on and on. But keep going. Look at geoengineering, MIT Technology Review, the Saleta Institute, Center for International Environmental Law, Royal Society. Look up Harvard. Look up the Deming. In geoengineering, everything you need to know is there. It's there. Everything is there. So this is the most important. This is the most important. This is critical. I want you to understand the urgency of this. The investigative notion that reflects the gravity of what Marjorie Taylor Greene's proposed legislation, tying into broader implications of DARPA and RFK Jr. and Trump and ongoing public concern about government weather modification. They have been pushing, they have laughed at us for so long. They're doing it right in front of you. It's like three-card Monte. They're laughing at you. They have been laughing at you. You don't understand how critical this is. They know exactly what they're doing. And they're just, they get a kick out of it. They get a kick out of it. They love mocking you. Sprayed and betrayed would be maybe the theme for this. Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG, has declared war on the government's darkest open secret. Listen to me. Can't say this enough, my friend.
She's been standing on.
Can't say this enough. And like I said, some members of my family have thought I was going crazy. Mrs. L would say, please keep your eye on this, on the the road, because I'm saying, look. And finally I just stopped. I just said, I can't. I'm wasting my time with this. But I kept saying, look, it's right here. I don't have to read anything. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to research anything. Just look. And I used to work with these weather people on TV shows. I said, why don't you get out there and ask the question, what happened to the clouds? What is this? These aren't clouds. So while Americans were celebrating Independence Day, which was great with hot dogs and fireworks and all that stuff, Mother Nature delivered something. I love that. Mother Nature. Far less festive, I guess. Catastrophic flooding across central Texas. Entire neighborhoods swallowed in minutes. Power grids buckled. Lives lost. But what if this devastation wasn't just some freak weather event? What if it was engineered? What if it was engineered? Is that possible? On July the 5th, Marjorie Taylor Greene, that's today, dropped a political bombshell that's been years, if not decades in the making. In a post on X, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I am with her 100%. She is coming in. She is forming a new, Elon Musk is talking about the need for a new party. We don't need a new party. We need a new direction.
He don't lead
a new focus. And she and others have been talking about this returning to America first and asking, why are we connected and beholden to this BB? He's coming to New York, to Washington again. So what is going on here? That has been monumental. Listen to me. Listen like you've never listened before, especially if you're brand new. Welcome. This is so critical. We are a new, I don't know what we are. MAGA, Republican, Trump, I don't know what you want to call us. And we are saying for the first time, no. There are Democrats breaking away from the Democratic Party. We have a race in New York which is so critical for the entire country, not just here. Zoran Mamdani And I am throwing in my support 100% for Eric Adams, who's the only one who can beat him. And I want Curtis Sliwa, my dear friend, and Cuomo to drop out and throw their support. We cannot risk this. This cannot be some vanity venture here. Sorry. This is realism. But back to what I was saying. Marjorie Taylor Greene announced that she will be introducing legislation to make it a felony offense for any entity, including the government, to inject or disperse or spray chemical substances into the atmosphere with the intent of altering the weather or temperature or sunlight or climate. That's right. A federal ban on geoengineering. Finally. I am introducing, she said, a bill that prohibits the injection, release, or dispersion of chemicals or substances into the atmosphere for the express purpose of altering weather, temperature, climate, or sunlight intensity. She said it will be a felony offense. God bless her. She says the bill is modeled after Florida's Senate Bill 56, which already punishes such activity with heavy fines and potential prison time. And she made it clear that it was not a knee-jerk reaction or some publicity stunt or political stunt. She's been working with legislative counsel for months. And now with the timing uncannily aligned with Independence Day's weather chaos, the issue has gone from kind of fringe to federal. And she's not alone. She's not alone. We've been here. You've been with me the whole time. You know me. This is something I can't, because it was so obvious. RFK Jr. names DARPA. Did you see this? Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Not exactly a man known for throwing around baseless theories. Though the methylene blue, I don't know. Anyway, he's gone on record linking stratospheric aerosol injection to DARPA. This is the Pentagon's, shadowy research arm. And a now viral segment on Dr. Phil. Bobby Kennedy addressed a woman concerned about stratospheric aerosol injections, including aluminum, strontium, bromium, and that which is sprayed daily. She calls out Dane Wigington by name. That is not happening in my agency, Kennedy replied. We think it's DARPA, and a lot of it now is coming out of the jet fuel. That detail stopped loads in their tracks. Jet fuel? Where have we heard that before? If confirmed, this means that aerosols may be embedded in commercial and military aviation, a distribution method hiding in plain sight. They may not even be aware of. They may have no special aircraft needed, no flight plans to trace, just spray, fly, and deny. Kennedy added he was hiring someone to investigate the matter full time and vowed, he said, to hold those responsible accountable. Now, whether or not that happens remains to be seen. But now it's one of the most high profile acknowledgments of a program we have been screaming about forever. How long have you been screaming about it? Long dismissed as conspiracy. Trump's warning. Trump says maybe it's the spray. And then there's Donald Trump. God bless this man, known for his blunt, kind of uncanny instincts and populist candor. Trump has repeatedly suggested that something being sprayed in the environment could be responsible for the dramatic spike in autism and chronic illness in American children. There's something wrong. This is his quote. There's something wrong. We've done something wrong. Maybe it's a spray that we spray all over the place that nobody else does. Other countries don't. The Pennsylvania Dutch don't do anything, and they're amazingly healthy. Well, they would inhale and ingest the spray as well, but that's another story. Now, this isn't mere speculation. It's a presidential level red flag. Now, whether it's connected to vaccines or toxins or geoengineering, Trump's suspicion is clear. Whatever is happening in our skies may be destroying the next generation. Do you hear this? Do you hear what's going on right now? Our good friend George Lenz says, let's not forget that these aerosol ingredients are also seriously toxic, and they've been playing this game since time immemorial. Indeed, sir, and thank you for that. When I saw this, I couldn't believe this. Weather is a weapon. We have wanted this forever. Was it Operation Storm Fury and seeding clouds? If you control the weather, if I control the weather through DARPA or otherwise, or HARP or anything, I will do it. If I can drill down and use direct energy weapons on some tectonic plate, some vulnerable juncture, something, I can just change everything. If DARPA and federal agencies are actively manipulating the weather, think about this. Think about this. This is the most important. If they're actively manipulating the weather, then this isn't climate research, it's weather warfare. And not necessarily against other nations, but against American citizens. Now, the flooding in Texas wasn't the first suspected incident. Snowfalls in summer, heat waves that break historic records, hurricanes that stall in place, fires that erupt from nowhere, stop, fires that only affect certain buildings and structures and homes. These aren't always natural acts. In a world of HARP and ionosphere heaters, that's HARP, and advanced geoengineering patents filed openly for decades, the question isn't whether the technology exists, it's who's using it and why. And they don't care whether you know about this or not. You don't understand. They don't care. You mean nothing to them. They're laughing at you. They're doing it right in the open. They have things like Wikipedia to come along. It's changed. Enter MTG's bill. Her legislation cuts straight through the euphemisms. No more solar radiation management, no more climate intervention. No. The bill identifies the act for what it is: chemical manipulation of the sky, often without public consent or even awareness. And this is complicity through science. For years, the media mocked chemtrails. Experts scoffed. They laughed at you. The term was memory hold as internet fringe nonsense. But now, with Bobby Kennedy, Trump, and MTG all sounding the alarm, and with the great Dan Wigington, who himself has been talking about this forever, risking everything, devoting his time, his effort, his money, his treasure, the narrative has shifted. This is no longer about conspiracy. This is about accountability. Even Alex Jones, the great Alex Jones, long maligned for calling out the government's weather manipulation practices. In fact, he was probably first. He's weighing in. He recently suggested the 4th of July floods in Texas could be. He said specifically, I can't tell you whether they are, but it could be the result of geoengineering gone wrong, or worse, a test. Quote, he said they're always beta testing these systems on their own people. They say it's to fight climate change. What they're doing is playing God. And they're not just altering the weather, they're altering us. That's what we're talking about right now. So what's happening now? Marjorie Taylor Greene's bill may be the first real legislative effort to confront the program head on. But make no mistake, it's going to be met with resistance because she's crazy. They're going to talk about her space lasers and let them bring it on. Doesn't matter. Remember, ignore it. The same unelected bureaucrats, the military contractors and NGO climate zealots who've been operating for years, in the background and the shadows, they're going to fight back big time. The question is, will the public finally fight for the truth? Are you going to fight for the truth? What are you going to do? What are you going to say? What's going to be your take? Are you going to sit back and see how it handles, how it turns out? Are you going to sit back? This is a chance for you. If not you, if we do not show what an overwhelming response is on every level, and you have social media, that's where it is. That's the public square. That's the back fence. That's the town. That's it. That's the newspaper. That makes more of an effect than anything you've ever seen. Are you going to fight for the truth? Every sky that you see streaked with this unnatural haze and these, again, it's like a, what would you call it? Cheesecloth kind of thing. I don't know. Every weather anomaly you write off as coincidence. Every unexplained illness, every neurological disorder, everything that just happened out of nowhere. What if it all connects? And the only way we're going to get to the bottom of it is if we stand up and say, we want to know the answers now. You can't sit back anymore and just say, you know what? I'll let them take care of this. I'll just, you know what? They'll take care of it. You're not going to hear about this on Fox News. You're not going to hear about this on Fox News. You're not going to hear about this on Newsmax or that other clown, the baby show, News Nation or nothing. If it's on cable, you ain't going to hear it. You're not going to hear it on the regular station. You're not going to hear it. Nobody is going to talk about this because it has been labeled crazy. And you're crazy. And you're a conspiracy theorist. That's what they're going to do. That's it. I'm telling you. I know their MO. So do you. We've been lied to before. Weapons of mass destruction. We have lied to about gain of function research. Remember that Fauci? Nothing happened to him. We've been lied to about surveillance, about Epstein, about 9/11, about Vietnam, about the Gulf of Tonkin. Do I have to go on and on? Are we really supposed to believe? No, seriously. Are we really supposed to believe that your government wouldn't experiment with the weather or on us? Do you really believe that? What's it going to take? Are you going to join the fight this time? It's up to you. Every instinct you have, like most Americans, is like, you know what? I'll let them talk about it. What am I going to do? I'm just, you know what? I'll follow this. Maybe I'll like it or I don't know. That's the problem. It's this torpor, this ennui, this concretized, sedentary focus. MTG's bill, rather, isn't just a legal proposal. It's a line in the sand. A red line. We've heard about these red lines. It's a red line. A chance to demand, finally, transparency and finally, maybe put an end to a program whose effects may already be irreversible. Do you know what this has done? Remember when you were talking about things like nanotechnology that might be contained in certain, vaccines? I don't know. There's no evidence of that, I guess. But isn't that something? What if it's right there? What if over a period of time, you're just breathing this? You don't know what you're breathing. Every day, they spray at night, they spray in the daytime. Have you ever seen those days when they're not spraying, how beautiful it looks? Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen those beautiful days when they're not spraying? George Lenz says, we were talking about this 10 years ago here. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Robert Malloy says, I wish my Indian brothers would quit dancing. I wish my Indian brothers would quit dancing. I wish my Indian brothers would quit dancing. I don't know what that means. Rain dance, Indian, Asian, I don't know. But thank you. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe I just don't get the joke. Now, you know and I know that the government, our government, can no longer hide behind this, the usual stuff, the scientific jargon. Not when the skies are chalky white, when crops are dying, when floods are biblical, children are sick. How about this? How about people who worry about a gas engine that could somehow melt the, icebergs thousands of miles away? About a gas engine or about a fan. Remember, they wanted to get rid of ceiling fans and pizza ovens, and they wanted to get rid of gas stoves. Remember that? Just to see what they could do. And now we have something that is admittedly seen spraying in the sky. And nobody's approved of this. And then you have Bill Gates who says, well, we're going to try to control climate change. Excuse me. Who are you to do this? Did anybody approve this? You're spraying this? Solar radiation management, carbon dioxide removal. What? Nobody's talking about this. Let me say this again. The people who were actively involved in this issue, this thing called climate change, they're not saying a word about it. Something is being sprayed. Is there anyone here who has not seen this? Is there anyone watching today who says, I'm really not sure what you're talking about? I haven't seen any spraying, or I haven't seen hazy days. I mean, the haze that's normal, right? I mean, sometimes you don't see the sun, and does anybody here not know this? Is there anybody here? I mean, there might be. Something is being sprayed. Something is being sprayed. And it's time we name it and ban it and hold the architects of this accountable before they turn the weather into the ultimate weapon and the people into acceptable collateral damage. Let me tell you something. This is something. I want you to understand something, my friends. This is a wake-up call. You can decide not to take a vaccine if you want. I mean, you can, refuse, and you can do whatever you want. You cannot go to the doctor. You cannot, wear a mask. But you cannot not breathe. You cannot not go outside. I told you last night we have these friends of ours, and they sent us a very cute picture of their granddaughter. I guess at her first July 4th, thing. And they had little ear muffs or, ear guards to prevent her from being shocked by the sound, by the explosion. That poor kid, from the time it takes its first breath, walks outside. I don't know what's going on. I want to tell you a story that I'd like to do. And I'm no expert in this. And I'm no sci-fi guy. But I want to tell you my story. And maybe it's been done. I don't think so. But if it's done, you heard it here first. In my dystopian novel, I'm going to have something sprayed. Something that's metallic, something that's nanoparticulate, something that's real tiny. That gets into the system, that gets into everybody's lungs, and it takes years, and it makes them basically metallic. It changes the chemistry of the blood. It may not even be a poison per se. It just may change pH and the metallic nature of blood. So you become almost a transistor. You become a capacitor. You become whatever the electronics term. And then I go to the thing that nobody talks about. Never. 5G, 6G next. Remember Trump sometimes said 5th generation Wi-Fi, 5th generation towers everywhere. I think of this baby born, breathing outside, breathing. I don't know what. Never had a moment. But anyway, in my world, everybody's metallic. And then when I want some days, I just fire up my 5G, 6G or something, and I just fry people or shut things down or slow things down. You are the capacitor. You are the reference point. You are the object of this thing that I'm directing. Far-fetched? Yeah, that couldn't happen. Something happened to our spirit. We don't object. It's been left to us. We are the members of the conspiratorium. We're the ones they laugh at. We're the ones that go, oh, those crazy people. And some of you are absolutely bug-ass crazy. But that doesn't mean you're not right. And we've been saying about this. And now all of a sudden, it's okay. Trump's saying it. Bobby Kennedy's saying it. Okay. Bobby Kennedy's not the first person to talk about dyes. We've been talking about this thing forever. We've been talking about, I remember going and talking about GMOs forever. There was a young lady, I don't know if she was just a kid. I saw a picture of her recently. Her name is Rachel Parent. And you know that guy, Kevin, what's his name, from Shark Tank, Kevin Leary. She tore him a new one. She was a little girl. I mean, destroyed him about GMOs. I remember talking about that. Never caught up. Never caught up. There was a piece of legislation in California that merely would have labeled, just labeled. It would have labeled GMOs. That's all it was. Wouldn't ban anything, just label it. And it failed. Because of Monsanto's and the Bayers and all the big the companies that own everything. We've seen this before. Remember how one seed gets out and is mixed with another, and they remember it was a Food Incorporated. Remember that? And we sit back, not you, but we, the country, and we sit back and say, somebody will take care of it. Can't be that bad. I mean, if it was that bad, it'd be illegal, right? Right? I saw something the other day. There's a guy named, have you ever seen him? Dr. Mike. Have you seen him ever? Who's seen Dr. Mike? This guy's got 12 million, maybe, followers. I have never seen in my life anybody as pro vaccine as he was. Never. I mean, he is to vaccine. Even the people who, now, as I've said, and I think most of us have said, I am not an expert. I know nothing about vaccines. Nothing. I look to other people, let other people expert. Many of you are experts because, you're an expert. You're an expert in everything. You know everything. I proudly say I know nothing about them. But I do know one thing. All of a sudden people are saying, hey, there's this thing called APAC. And this is the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee. It's not a PAC per se. And it's called the Israeli lobby, incorrectly called the Jewish lobby, because the Zionists or the Israeli lobby, or many of them are Christians. They have nothing to do with Judaism. Anyway, but we say, wow. And it's like, where have you been? Where have you been? You think APAC is big? Try big tech lobby. Good luck with that. They'll bury APAC. Bury them. What if I found out, and I'm just saying, I'm just saying, and I'm not making any suggestions one way or another. But what if in my movie, I say, let's go and let's pay the best new stars, the influencers, and let me get people out there to say that they love whatever it is. Not vaccines, but anything. Eventually, we're going to find out, we're going to start seeing things like, who pays you? Who pays you? Where does this come from? Who? And if you're out there, if you're saying, and I believe that, let's say there's a guy who said, I'm for red meat. I'm a paleo or I'm a I'm a carnivore advocate and eat raw meat like that Jordan Peterson. What if I found out theoretically that the cattle industry was paying me to say that? You think that matters? I don't know if I necessarily want this, but since we're in full disclosure, since we're all this. So who is it that's, I don't know if anybody's for this because nobody knows about this yet. Because this is going to be tough. It's going to be tough for people to say, well, I'm for spraying. Maybe there will be somebody. But who are these people? Who is spraying this? Who's paying them? You mean to tell me that if it is in the jet fuel, that airlines don't know this? You mean to tell me that somebody says, excuse me, make sure you use this gasoline, it's jet fuel. Yeah, use this, not gasoline. Why? It's, do they know this? If it's true, what are we going to do about it? I'll tell you what most Americans are going to do. Nothing. Because they don't get nothing to do. Because they're saying, look, if I have to worry now I got to worry about what? Jet fuel? Oh, for the love of God. I'm just trying. Look, it's a 4th of July weekend. Just leave me alone. Stop telling me I got to worry about this. And I'm so tired of you always warning me. That's what Americans think. How do we fix that? We go out and we tell them this. And we spread the word. And all you have to do, the next time you see a plane is say, hey, Jerry, what are they spraying? Oh, they're not spraying. That's not spraying. Well, what is that? Well, that's just you don't think that's condensation, do you? Well, do you know what geoengineering is? No. Do you know what stratospheric aerosol injections are? No. Do you know what solar radiation management is? No. You know what the dimming is? Have you ever seen geoengineeringwatch.org? Check that baby out. That's the Bible. Geoengineeringwatch.org. Check out the dimming. The dimming. I've been screaming. And two things. Well, one, it's not so much that. Well, there are two things. Number one is how nobody cares or knows. Or when I point this out, I say, well, it's nothing. Because they love to tell me I'm crazy. There are people who just love to tell me I'm crazy. Because I'm just crazy. I'm just crazy. Crazy about this, crazy about that. I'm always crazy. I said, I don't think I'm crazy about this because I'm very careful what I say. And number two, they don't like to be told that they don't know yet again something else. You mean I don't know about that too? Yeah, I'm getting tired of this. You make me feel kind of stupid. I don't know this. I don't know that. I don't know. You're telling me all these things I don't know. I'm getting tired of this. I'm getting tired of you telling me things I don't know. Please stop telling me that. I'm sorry, I don't. And there are people who just don't like to know anything. Even at the height, do you remember when everything was going on regarding the Rona, how more people that you knew just jumped in, leapt, both feet, loved it. I've got these stupid friends of the family. And one guy was pointing to his thing. I said, do you know what you're doing? Well, we got to do this. I said, do you know that nobody tested this? Vaccines work, but they have to be tested. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I think medicine works, but sometimes I think thalidomide might have been a bit of a problem, but he had no interest. He just he needed to get his little thumbprint or profile picture on his Facebook account so we can say, stay home, save lives, whatever it was. You remember how they leapt? Nobody questioned anything because it's inconceivable for the government to have allowed something, or God forbid, be complicit when we're trying to stop this deadly. Nobody knew anybody who ever died or nothing. Remember that? Nothing. Oh, there might have been one, but so they say, people with comorbidities. I thought that was something, but no, that compares nothing to people who won't look up and say, okay, this one I'm biting. What is that? They won't even do that. And the deep state does it right in front of you. And they tell you, they go online, they tell you, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. E.D. Crowley, our friend, writes, E.D. says, State of Fear, the novel written by author of Jurassic Park, was ahead of its time, 2004, goes against the present accepted narrative of warming. By the way, Edie, use an asterisk whenever you are putting a name. Just put an asterisk. It's very simple. You can also spell it out phonetically. Don't ever, thank you, by the way, for your kindness. You can always write anything here. Asterisks, spread the word apart, different ways of doing it. It's machine, whatever it is. But thank you. My heart leaps over what I'm seeing. Maybe we're going to make some progress. Maybe. I'm seeing something right now. The Mark Levins of the world cannot understand what is happening regarding the Bibi Netanyahu brigade. They can't see it. Absolutely. Or maybe he doesn't want to see it. I don't know. But I'm saying to myself, do you know what's happening here? It's like years ago when people said, hey, you know what? People aren't smoking as much. Smoking is dropping precipitously. Well, I smoke. Well, I know you do. But around the country, and look at smoking now. You rarely see it. Not like in the old days. I mean, you rarely see people smoke. Even vaping has dropped significantly. So when you have to be aware of it, you may not be able to explain why. You just have to notice things. But if the tobacco industry is paying you money to promote smoking, you don't want to hear that smoking is decreased. You want to go out there and you want to spread the word because you're being paid, just like product placement. You want to be paid. You want this. Now, one of these days, I'm asking a very simple question. How many people, YouTube will always ask that if you're going to be promoting something, just put a little check mark that says the following contains promotion. Okay. But if I'm directly being paid, I mean, one could say not just to promote, gold or whatever, but I'm a spokesperson for the bacon industry. And I'm talking about how not only bacon's good for you, but it's healthy. Forget the nitrates, the nitrosamines, forget all that. Oh, it's good for you. Wow. And what if I'm a doctor? Some of this stuff doctors say it's just unbelievable. I don't know if I want to go there yet. I really don't know. I think you should be told, buyer beware and be aware of what's happening. So the good news is, my friend, that. So rest assured, thank the Lord that finally maybe we're making some progress. So Kelly McKinnon, thank you so much for your kindness. George Lenz, thank you. Robert Malloy, thank you. Edie Crowley, thank you. Let me remind you again, July the 19th, the Cutting Room. Tickets, there's a link right there.
Coffee. Follow me.